The coronation, in other words, is a new beginning, a joyous moment when the nation and the emperor's future are blessed. It is when everyone's heart is filled with hope and anticipation. But for me, it was the moment I lost everything. Father once said, "Ibyuna, your mother truly loved you, Ibyuna. Even though she left us only 6 months after you were born, that cannot change the fact that your mother loved you with all her heart. From now on, I will love you in your mother's place, twice as much." Father, who had promised so, yet why did you leave me? Now, everyone blames me because they know my mother was a great witch. Just then, someone suddenly threw a stone at my head, causing the crown to be knocked askew and successfully capturing my attention. Someone else saw this and hurriedly shouted, "What are you doing to the Empress?" The one who had just thrown the stone immediately retorted, "Empress? I did not accept that. A witch's child on the imperial throne? My daughter, younger than her, was called a witch and burned at the stake. All witches must die." I did not speak in response, but silently pondered in my thoughts. Witches, the greatest enemy of the Holy Empire. The people of the Empire are born to awaken and use divine power, but witches use an evil power called magic, threatening and terrifying the Empire. In the end, for the safety of everyone, a special law regarding witches was enacted. Many people were sacrificed. Father, I'm so scared. While I was still confused and didn't know what to do, my uncle suddenly spread his arms and blocked a stone someone was throwing at me. Then he immediately spoke encouragingly, "You must not waver." Your father left last words saying, "No matter what anyone says, my daughter is still the legitimate successor to the throne. So you don't need to worry. Just as we have erased the witch's hair color, we will conceal that tainted blood with rigorous training and make you a great emperor. Trust me, your uncle, and follow my lead." Perhaps from that moment, my aunts ceased all contact and the servants gradually left. When I had lost everything, only Uncle Liberus remained to protect me. Yes, I wanted to trust him. The days of fasting and training to conceal the tainted blood increased. There was no warmth from people, nor from objects. Nothing existed around me. During those days, I found my mother's spell book. As soon as I saw it, I quickly asked myself, "Is this mother's?" Ibyuna, I hope that one day, my entire being will become your strength. I never knew these things were written in here. I had no idea. The spell book can only be opened by the one who closed it. Mother must have held me, a newborn baby, and turned the last page of this book with her own hands. I hope that even without me, the final spell in this book will protect you. In Mother's spell book, there was something unfinished, time travel, a spell that allows one to turn back time by sacrificing the most precious thing to oneself. I asked myself, the most precious thing to me. If it means I can see Mother and Father again, I am willing to trade everything. And so from then on, I tried to avoid my uncle's gaze to create an opportunity. As soon as she appeared with a gaunt and haggard face, someone called out, "Ibyuna," then stared at her in shock for a moment, then hesitantly asked, "How can this be? How did the emperor get into such a state?" She whispered, "Aunt Viola, is everything ready?" Viola replied, "Everything is perfect and everyone has come to help you." Before Ibyuna now were 3 people. The lord of the clan family, Danis, Ibyuna's knight, Asin, Ibyuna's aunt's husband, Elon Petro. She gently reassured, "So please rest assured." Ibyuna slowly crawled to the magic circle and promised, "Everything will be fine. Everyone, please hide." She asked again in astonishment, "Huh?" Ibyuna explained in a low voice, "It doesn't matter if a monster like me dies, but if Uncle comes, everyone will be in danger." She hastily continued, "Ibyuna, don't say such things. Witches are not monsters, nor are they beasts." She replied blankly, "But Uncle always told me that." He kept saying that. Before she could finish her sentence, Viola immediately hugged her tightly, then gently encouraged, "You are the strongest and kindest person I have ever known. One day, you and everyone in this world will realize that too. You are." Before she could finish her words, someone suddenly kicked the door open, startling all 5 of them into alertness. As soon as he saw her, Liberus immediately questioned in a harsh voice, "Ibyuna, you have finally revealed your true nature, using such evil magic. In the palace. I don't remember ever teaching you that." Viola quickly reassured, "It's okay, Ibyuna. Are you ready? Close your eyes and imagine your mother's and father's faces. If this spell succeeds, you will see them again." She said in confusion, but Viola continued, "It's all right, you can do it. When you close your eyes and open them, everything will be over." Ibyuna silently called, "Mother, Father," then silently repeated what Viola had just told her. "Close your eyes, and when you open them, everything will..." Raising the sword in his hand, Liberus shouted in a harsh voice, "Bless the lost souls so they no longer wander in the land of Akma and embrace the sinful souls." At this point, he suddenly paused for a moment. Then in a low voice, blamed himself. I'm sorry I couldn't purify you. Ibuna paid no heed to what he just said, but only focused on closing her eyes and silently repeating what Viola had said. When you close your eyes and open them, everything will. Just as Liberus swung his sword down, the surroundings around her suddenly changed. She used her last breath to silently plead, return it to the one worthy of the throne, Lady Sophia, the true hope of the Holy Kingdom. Give Lady Sophia the power of the Holy Kingdom. The throne belongs to Lady Sophia. Return it. After an unknown amount of time, as soon as Ibuna opened her eyes, what greeted her was a room that seemed quite familiar. After observing her surroundings for a while, she immediately thought to herself, this is my aunt's old room. Did I really go back in time? As soon as she saw herself in the mirror, she was so stunned that she froze for a second. Then she thought in confusion, small, chubby hands, without any scars, short legs that don't move as I wish, pink hair like mother's. Could it be that my most precious thing was my youth? Wait, how can I meet mother and father in this body? After a moment of confusion about her current baby body, Ibuna quickly encouraged herself. For now, I must calm down and sort things out. I am the future emperor, Ibuna Luperenia, who, by magic, has traveled back in time. As a result, perhaps in exchange for my age, I have become a newborn baby. What's more, I also brought Mother's magic book from the future. What should I do? That's right, that is Mother's magic book. How could it have followed me to the past like this? I must hide it before someone finds it. Empire year 879, July 22nd, my father, the second prince of the Holy Empire, received a divine prophecy. A child of God will appear in the world. Immediately, my father began to search for that child everywhere. However, the protagonist of the prophecy, Saintess Sophia, only appeared in the year 882 after my father's death. Therefore, I have returned to the year 879 when my father received the prophecy, with the intention of pretending to be the child of God. But if I am discovered with this magic book, they will think I am a witch. I must hide this book at all costs. If it is discovered, everything will be over. Thinking this, Ibuna quickly crawled up and pushed the book under the table, then crawled back to her original spot. Then she lay there and burst into tears, thinking, I did it. This should last for a few days, right? My aunt always goes on vacation at this time of year, so maybe no one will enter this room for a while. No one. If no one comes in, that means... Note, can't move, can't speak, hungry. If this goes on, I'll starve to death. While wailing to seek help, Ibuna thought in panic, I have to get out of here immediately. I can't let things be like this. This is the magic I tried so hard to succeed with. Why is it always like this? Someone please get me out of here. Just then, two maids suddenly opened the door and began to argue with each other. I really heard a baby crying, but the princess isn't even here, so that's impossible. But I'm sure of it. Before she could finish her sentence, the maid with the bun saw Ibuna lying face down on the floor. So she and the short-haired maid frantically said, There's a baby here. Guards, call the guards. No, wait, someone bring a clean towel here and a bed to put the baby on. Hearing this, Ibwana's eyes filled with tears of emotion as she thought, I'm saved. After an unknown amount of time, someone suddenly asked wonderingly, how could a child like this appear here? Ibwana thought blankly. What is it? Why is it so noisy? Another person quickly spoke up. No one saw anyone suspicious. It might be an abandoned child. She frowned and screamed inwardly. Be quiet, then suddenly woke up and burst out with a cry, who, upon seeing 5 strangers leaning over and staring at her, was so frightened that she let out a silent scream, in her heart, and stared at them with wide, shocked eyes for a long time. The short-haired maid saw she was awake and asked with a happy smile, Oh, is the baby awake? The red-haired knight added with a smile, Uncle is not a bad person. She screamed silently in her heart. At this age, being talked to like this is so embarrassing. The short-haired maid suddenly rested her chin on her hand and said, This child, its eyes are different colors. The red-haired knight immediately added, It's true, one blue eye and one pink. Hearing this, Ibwana couldn't help but think fearfully. Oh no, what should I do now? If they say I'm a witch's child, I might be abandoned again. Everyone always hated my eyes. After a moment of thought, he immediately voiced his speculation. But the blue eye is like the Emperor's eye, isn't it? The maid with the bun suddenly spoke up. It reminds me of something from 6 years ago. The maid with the braid added. But the Emperor is old now, so that's impossible. Hearing this, Ibwana thought with some surprise. The Emperor? If it's the Emperor of this era, they're talking about my grandfather. But was there a child abandoned in the palace 6 years ago? And what does that have to do with my grandfather's age? Someone then suggested, For now, let's find the child's parents. If we can't find them, we'll send it to an orphanage. She continued to think to herself, but they won't tell me any details. Wait a minute, an orphanage? No, that's not acceptable. If I'm sent to an orphanage, I might never be able to return to the palace. I had to find a way to prove I am the saintess. Just as Abwana finished her thought, her father suddenly opened the door and walked in. To her astonishment, he suddenly asked, "This is the child that was found in the palace." The black-haired knight suddenly rushed over breathlessly and asked, "Your Highness, why are you in such a hurry?" He replied, "Today I received a prophecy. It said that a child of God would appear in the world." With that, he walked over to her cradle. Seeing this, she unconsciously stared at him blankly. Seeing that, he also stood still and observed her for a while, then suddenly exclaimed, "What beautiful eyes! Ah, it's a pleasure to meet you." Ibwana suddenly burst into tears and thought emotionally, "I just like mine. There's no doubt. This warmth, it's father." The moment I saw father's face, the tears just flowed. Thinking this, Ibwana reached out and touched his hand. Then she thought with determination, "Father, I will definitely avoid the tragic future ahead." Seeing Ibwana suddenly reach out her hand, a strange yellow light suddenly emanated from her arm, which made the black-haired knight say in astonishment, "Your Highness, that was truly just now." He quickly touched her face lightly and said gently, "Ah, you used your power, didn't you, little one? Indeed, this child I will adopt." Ibwana thought somewhat pensively. To be able to use power, one must be baptized before the age of 2 and have the holy seal engraved on their soul. Only my father was born a saint, without needing to perform the ritual. The reason I can impersonate a saintess is because I am a child who bore the holy seal on my soul after receiving the ceremony. Ritual. It was a plan I came up with in a hurry, but it doesn't seem too bad. However, since then, my father has not visited even once. Just then, 2 maids suddenly started discussing. The second prince hasn't appeared since that day either. Ah, maybe it's because of the rumors that are spreading, which made Ibwana think with some surprise. Rumors? The first maid quickly asked, "Rumors, what are they?" The other maid replied, "The rumor that this child might actually be the emperor's daughter." This would mean grandfather would become father, father would become brother, and brother would become brother's brother of Ibwana. While she was lying confused in her cradle, the 2 maids continued their discussion. After all, this is no different from what happened 6 years ago. Yes, could it be true? And it made her mind immediately fly straight out into the distant universe. Then she couldn't help but think in terror. A father-daughter relationship that transcends generations. That's not true. Let me tell you a little about my grandfather. My grandfather loved my father, the second prince, very much. A handsome face that resembled his, along with outstanding abilities. It was said that when my father was born, there was also a special prophecy. On the barren land, the sun will rise. As if it were the opening of a legend, building a palace. Overjoyed by the prophecy, my grandfather even built a new palace, the Sun Palace. It is in my father's palace that I am now lying. My grandfather's favoritism towards father did not stop there. The saint, who was expected to become the next pope, thinking that if my father ascended the throne, a society where religion and politics were intertwined could be established. And so, my grandfather finally carried out the biggest plan of his life, even though traditionally the grand prince had priority in succession. My grandfather never thought that my father would die early and his granddaughter would become the grand prince's puppet. As a result, the throne returned to its owner. But first, I must ensure that father will not die. Suddenly hearing a strange noise, the short-haired maid asked, "What is that? The noise outside is so loud." The maid with the bun quickly added, "Could His Majesty be coming?" Suddenly, someone shouted loudly, "Make way," giving the 2 maids a scare. The blond young man strolled in and said with some arrogance, "I heard that the child of God has descended. The saintess should be welcomed by the grand prince, for that is my belief. Therefore, I have come to welcome her." For some reason, Ibwana's face suddenly darkened, looking as if she was terrified upon hearing this person's voice. The maid with the bun immediately bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Grand Prince Liberus. Pardon me, but the second prince is not present." The maid with the bun quickly added, "If you have any instructions, we will pass them on." Liberus suddenly placed his hand on the short-haired maid's shoulder, then said coldly, "No, that's not important. I didn't come to see Ein today. It is an honor to meet you. Saintess, I am Grand Prince Liberus Reinhardt." For some reason, he suddenly fell silent and said no more. It turned out it was because he saw Ibwana's whole body trembling. Suddenly realizing something, he spoke. Something is not right. Ein suddenly entered and called out, "Brother," which startled him and made him quickly turn his head to look. He asked wonderingly, "What wind brought you here?" He replied calmly, "Ein, you've come. What about the formalities? Is that the first thing you say to me? A brother visiting his younger brother probably doesn't need to ask permission, right? He quickly added, but you didn't come to see me. Seeing Ibwana's whole body trembling nonstop and her face covered in sweat. So he immediately questioned, what did you do to that child? Liberus didn't answer, but looked at him silently for a long time. Ibwana silently called out, Father. Liberus quickly explained, I didn't do anything. I didn't touch her. I asked, puzzled. You did nothing. So why does the child look so panicked? She thought with teary eyes, affirming. That's right, Uncle didn't do anything, but this body is reacting too sensitively. He quickly explained, I heard that the first time you met me, you were the same. He said with a bit of sulk. Afterwards, you slept peacefully in my arms. He couldn't help but ask indignantly, Hey, are you implying that it's my fault? He gently picked her up and replied, If you really did nothing, I will apologize. However, this child seems to be afraid of your face, so I beg you, for the time being, don't come here. After hearing these words from mine, Liberus's expression suddenly darkened. Then he turned around and said, I will leave right now. After saying that, he immediately started to leave the room, seeing that he had left. He then asked, You must have been very scared. Is everyone all right? The short-haired maid replied, We are fine. But before she could finish her sentence, someone suddenly spoke. Pardon me, Imperial Brother, Prince Liberus, told me to greet the Saintess. So I followed, but missed the right moment. This young man turned out to be Ferial Reinhardt, the third prince of the Empire. He continued in a low voice, I'm sorry, Imperial Brother. He looked quite unfamiliar, which made Ibuna ask curiously, Who is that? Ferial smiled and suggested, If you allow it, may I have the honor of holding the Saintess? She continued to think curiously, Who is this person? Why does this person call Father Imperial Brother? Ferial earnestly pleaded, Could you please let me hold the Saintess for a bit? I replied with some hesitation, I'm afraid that seems difficult. This child is very sensitive. When she is a little older, I will let you hold her. Hearing that, Ferial said with some disappointment, I understand. Then, can I just look at the Saintess for a bit? Ibuna again thought curiously, Who is this person? I gently laid her down in the cradle and replied, It seems the child is not as afraid of Ferial. So, while I discuss security matters, I will allow it. Hearing that, he couldn't help but say joyfully, Thank you very much. Suddenly remembering something, she thought to herself, Ferial, I think I've heard this name before, a very long time ago. I remember now. He is the youngest uncle. It's unbelievable. You are in the royal family tree, but because you died early, I never had the chance to meet you. In the records, the cause of your death was recorded as sacrificed in battle. Oh my goodness, what a surprise. Looking closer, he looks quite a bit like my father. After thinking, Ibuna smiled with her eyes and uttered, Two sounds ooh, which means uncle. Ferial suddenly changed his attitude and asked coldly, Why are you the only one considered a child of God? Which stunned Ibuna. He questioned coldly, I am truly nothing significant, even though we were both abandoned. Why do you receive such special favor? After hearing his words, along with his cold gaze that seemed to pierce her soul, she couldn't help but wonder, could it be, am I hated? And suddenly turned and urged, Now then, let's end this conversation. Ferial, you should return to your room. Ferial looked at Ibuna silently for a few seconds. Then he turned his head to look at him and replied with a smile, Yes, brother, I was very happy to meet the Saintess. Witnessing Ferial's change of face, faster than flipping a pancake, left her so stunned that she froze and stared at the ceiling for a moment. He bowed politely and said, Then I shall take my leave. Ein replied, and as he left, he cheerfully waved to the two maids. You've all worked hard. Seeing this, the two of them quickly bowed and said, Yes, your highness. After being frozen in shock for a moment, Ibuna immediately wondered to herself, what was that? Until now, I've only met people with good intentions, not a new threat to be wary of like Ferial. I feel like I've just had a bucket of cold water thrown on me. Calm down, Ibuna. This is the Imperial Palace. The moment you show weakness, you will be devoured. Never forget, this is a world where only the strong survive. Soon, it was late afternoon. Ein was now sitting beside Ibuna's cradle and gently asked, It's finally quiet. You must have been panicked by the appearance of so many strangers. I'm sorry for leaving you alone for the past while. The adoption procedures were more complicated than I thought. Hearing him say that, she smiled happily with her eyes and thought, Because you didn't have to avoid me. He suddenly reached out his hand and said with some self-reproach, I really shouldn't have done that. Then he slowly lowered his hand and gently stroked her head. Seeing this, she couldn't help but feel deeply moved and thought, Oh, Father, this is wonderful. I love you. The wet nurse exclaimed with a smile, It seems the little one is very attached to your majesty. I heard that talking to young children often is good for their brain development. He added in amazement, Really, I'll try. Then he immediately recited a long passage of theology to Ibuna. Power as if belonging to the flesh reigns, and I went there. I have spoken of all the qualities of joy, and the attributes are divided into destruction, healing, and void. Those with the destructive attribute will become holy knights. Those who possess the healing attribute will become healing priests. And those who carry the void attribute, saints, you were born with strong divine power, able to heal others. Let's meet God. Despite the wet nurse being completely stunned by the profound knowledge Ein was imparting to her, she chuckled to herself. I like the way my father teaches the fundamentals of theology to a newborn. Lifting her high, he affirmed decisively, everyone is very happy. Thinking this is a good omen, you will surely become a talented priest. She looked at him with an affectionate gaze and smiled, thinking, I'm very happy that Father is pleased. But, Father, I'm just trying to imitate Saintess Sophia. In truth, I have no healing ability. If I were truly a saint like Sophia, I wouldn't have had to live like before, always being compared to others. How? How could Sophia endure it? On second thought, this seems a bit strange. If one inherits the royal family's divine power, specifically Uncle Liberus or grandfather, Uncle Ferial should also possess divine power. Why is there no record of him achieving any feats in battle? After being lost in thought about this issue for a while, Ibuna also began to get drowsy. Then she quickly thought, all right, it's true that war is often unpredictable, and perhaps he died in an unfortunate accident. 7 days have passed since I returned to the past. Aunt will be back soon from her vacation. I need to retrieve Mother's magic book that I hid. Thinking this, she raised her hand high and let out a sound, oh, to show her determination. Hearing her steady snores, Ibuna wondered to herself, the wet nurse, she's asleep. Then, she suddenly clenched her fists and shut her eyes tightly. Together. And just like that, in a moment, she was able to easily teleport from her room to another place. Seeing that she could succeed on her very first try made her openly joyful. Then she thought, the Imperial Palace has a secret passage that only members of the royal family know. If I go through here, I can get to my aunt's room. Thinking this, she quickly used her power to open the door in front of her. Soon, the door was immediately ajar. Then she couldn't help but wonder, among those who have passed through this passage, I am probably the youngest, right? Only those who will become emperor can open this passage. Looking at the passage before it collapsed, it reminds me of that time. I don't know why, but it's still strange. Before, I used to be exhausted right after using magic, but now I feel like I have quite a bit of magic to spare. Is it because of the time jump? Did that help me mature? Someone once said, harsh trials make you stronger. Where did that saying come from? Or has something else changed? Oh well, this is a good thing anyway. After thinking, Ibuna excitedly scurried into the passage. Ibuna had retrieved the magic book. Cradling the book in her arms, tears welled up in her eyes as she thought, I'm glad you're safe. This is the only memento from my mother. Suddenly, her stomach rumbled, and in just a moment, her entire body instantly lost all its strength, and just like that, she staggered a few times and fell, thudding to the ground. She tried to reach out and touch the book, tears streaming down her face as she thought, ah, I'm hungry. Note, a newborn's energy is either at 0 or 100. The Emperor's lesson of appreciation. Magic cannot replace physical strength. Strength. Ibuna slowly turned over and relaxed, thinking, I need to rest for a bit. I've got the magic book back. There's no need to rush anymore. I'll read it slowly later. Sigh. They say that possessing a witch's belongings will damage the soul. Before, I was influenced by those words, always keeping my distance from magic. I didn't dare go against my uncle's words. If I did, he wouldn't have spared me. But what awaited me after that was death. From the beginning, my fate was decided in my uncle's hands. A witch's blood is not something that can be hidden with effort. So if that's the case, I'd rather try my luck and take a chance. With my mother's magic book, I will become a great witch. A moment later, Ibuna's eyes suddenly flew open, and she thought in panic, oh my, no way, Ibuna. When did you doze off? How long has it been? If they find out I'm gone, everything will be a disaster. Thinking this, Ibuna immediately used her power to return to her room. Because she was in a bit of a hurry, she fell on her bottom. Rubbing her behind with her hand, she grimaced and silently screamed, ouch! Then she quickly looked out the window and breathed a sigh of relief, thinking, has the night not passed yet? Good, there's still some time. If I go back now, I might avoid being discovered. Suddenly, someone approached her and asked, what is this? Who are you? Saintess, where did you come from? Seeing him appear here, she couldn't help but wonder suspiciously. Uncle Ferial, did I enter the wrong room? As he lifted her up, he mumbled to himself, this feeling is strange. You, could it be? Just then, someone suddenly burst through the door and called out loudly, "Prince!" There was quite a commotion, but suddenly seeing Ferial holding Ivina in his arms right in his room left all three of them completely stunned, while he and she were just as stunned. So, in this awkward situation, she could only manage a smile as confident as possible to somewhat ease the situation. After coming to his senses, the butler immediately screamed, "The prince has kidnapped the saintess! The prince has kidnapped the saintess! The prince has kidnapped the saintess! The prince has kidnapped the saintess!" Causing the quiet palace to soon become noisy. The royal palace was plunged into chaos. Everyone was discussing why Ivina appeared in Ferial's room, why the saintess appeared in the third prince's palace this morning. His Highness had expressed a desire to hold the saintess, but the second prince denied the request. Perhaps His Highness brought the saintess here without any permission. Seeing the situation was not good, Ferial loudly denied, "No, I didn't bring her here. The saintess suddenly appeared before me." Hearing him say that, the royal physician said with some difficulty, "Your Highness, the saintess doesn't even know how to crawl. It's impossible for her to have come to your palace on her own." "Possible," Ferial stammered in reply. "That right, but..." Without waiting for him to finish, the royal physician continued, "I implore your Highness to tell the truth. This could lead to a serious disaster." This statement frightened him. Ferial quickly explained, "I swear on my honor, I did not bring the saintess here." At this moment, Ivina felt a bit awkward, thinking, what should I do in this situation? I'm the one who caused my uncle to be so seriously misunderstood. Seeing him like this, the royal physician quickly suggested, "For now, please hand the saintess over to my care." Hearing this, Ferial didn't hesitate to toss Ivina to the butler. The force of the throw was so strong that she flew straight to the butler's feet, which made him exclaim in alarm, "Saintess!" The throw made Ivina's head spin. She thought in fear, "Me? It hurts so much." Standing before her, Ferial stammered worriedly, I am..." Not hearing the rest of the sentence, Ivina felt her consciousness fading. A while later, when Ivina woke up, she told herself, "Luckily, I have good stamina." In her room, the maids were talking about what had just happened. What will happen to the third prince? It seems the second prince is still considering the punishment for this incident. The saintess wasn't harmed, but someone suddenly asked, "This matter won't be ignored, will it?" The maid next to her replied, "Certainly not. This cannot be taken lightly." Just then, Ivina's nanny came up behind them and threatened in a low voice, "It seems you two have a lot of free time, don't you?" The two of them, frightened, quickly ran out, saying, "We sincerely apologize." Ivina lay in her crib, silently thinking, "The punishment hasn't been decided yet. Uncle doesn't love me, but that was my fault." Recalling Ferial's image, she blamed herself. By evening, Ivina sat listlessly, thinking, "I've been thinking for so long and still can't sleep." She crawled to the book near her and told herself, "Perhaps thanks to the sleep, my condition is much better now. I'll read the magic book again to find an answer." Opening the book, she thought, the time leap effect and the incantation, a new thing. Seeing the drawing of a cat in the book, she laughed happily, thinking, "No matter how many times I look at this, it's still funny. My mother, besides her messy handwriting, also drew very poorly. Because I was afraid of my uncle, I never dared to read what it said carefully. In this life, I finally have enough courage to read my mother's book completely." Ivina read the book intently, feeling a bit helpless when she saw the names of some spells like cat fur collection spell, egg hatching prevention spell, hair loss promotion spell. After a while, she found a spell that interested her, the eavesdropping spell, mouse and sparrow ears. Ivina exclaimed happily. She thought this spell could be useful. She lay down and continued to read intently. The book said, "The Theory of Time Leap." Later, she was surprised to think, "I didn't realize I had read to the final chapter." She was surprised to see the spell that saved my life. Time paradox. Time hates contradiction. Even if one succeeds in a time leap, time will relentlessly take revenge on the traveler to restore order. If I, who have returned to the past 10 years ago, try to change the future, can I act freely within the limits of the past? If I only cause a small crack in the path, perhaps that would be fine. Change is so small that no one notices. But if that crack harms someone, that person will bear a wound they never had before. But the predetermined past will restore itself to its original state. However, if another version of me is injured and discovers the existence of the time traveler, time, two entities existing in the same space. The contradictory time is like a foreign object stuck in a spring. Time will push the traveler out to maintain. Order. So that means I returned to the past even before I was born. Even though I have no memories of my mother, I understand. Ivina hugged the book tightly and told herself, I know that mother always loved me, no matter the cost. And she put the book down, determined. I also want to change the past and meet my mother. There are still 6 years before I am born. She felt a little uneasy, thinking, however, in this state, I wonder if I'm capable of doing anything. She calculated. In 3 years, mother will come to the capital. That's the day of the banquet at the royal palace. The great Witchrinzina, the day my mother first set foot in the empire. Ivina was determined. It's time for me to secure my place in the royal palace. The next morning in her room, after waking up, she was drowsy. After returning, I took a nap, and when I woke up, a holy relic had been attached to the mobile crib. She thought in confusion, why would such a rare item appear here? At that moment, the 2 maids from yesterday were whispering to each other again. His Highness must be very worried about the Saintess. Indeed, a holy relic that carries a blessing of protection. This made Ivina fall back in disbelief. A blessing of protection? Note, a holy relic that carries a blessing of protection, a sacred object that restricts access to those without divine power. Then the 2 maids continued. From now on, Prince Ferial will no longer be able to get close to the Saintess. Her nanny also said, that's right, the 3rd prince. The other maid continued her thought. Doesn't possess divine power, right? This statement greatly surprised Ivina. She wondered, what did she just say? Her nanny explained, when he was left at the royal palace, he was over 2 years old, so he couldn't participate in the baptism ceremony. Ivina blushed with annoyance upon hearing this, thinking, what does it mean to be abandoned at the royal palace? The nanny, not noticing her, continued, because he is royalty, he still receives many privileges. The other princes also treat him kindly. The nanny concluded, he is not someone who needs pity. Ivina recalled the scene before when Ferial stood before her crib and said, why are you the only one considered Saintess? Ivina realized we were both abandoned alike. She was so upset that tears started to fall. So that's how it was. The nanny turned to her and said, it's time to welcome His Highness. Oh, my Saintess. The nanny realized an alarm. Were you just crying? What's wrong? The nanny wondered, I just gave her milk. Seeing this, the maid standing nearby asked in confusion, I wonder, why does the Saintess always cry so softly? Looking at Ivina, lying in the crib, she continued, really, doesn't everyone find her different from ordinary children? The nanny replied, this isn't a serious problem, but I think I should still inform His Highness, just in case. Suddenly the door opened, and Ivina's eyes widened in surprise. A little girl with white hair and eyes like sparkling blue gems ran quickly into the room. The nanny, still standing worriedly by the crib, asked, Saintess, are you all right? Running up to the crib, the little girl said cheerfully, this is... She smiled brightly and asked, the rumored Saintess? That little girl was Viola Reinhardt, the 2nd princess of the empire. Realizing who had arrived, Ivina thought in surprise. What? Is that Aunt Viola? Ivina recalled images from her past life. At that moment, Viola looked at her and smiled brightly, saying, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Viola. Ivina looked at her, overjoyed, calling Viola in her heart. Auntie. Just then, Innsburn walked in from outside and said, be careful. She's very shy with strangers. I had to put in a lot of effort to calm her down. Viola turned to look at him and replied, don't worry. I'm not like you, brother. I have a rather gentle face, so it will surely be fine. This remark struck Innsburn like a bolt of lightning. Paying him no mind, Viola asked gently, may I hold her? Seeing her like this, Innsburn said helplessly, I already told you she's shy with strangers. Contrary to him, Ivina was overjoyed and reached out her hands for Viola to hold her. She thought, no, it's okay, please hold me, Annie. Hold my grimy hands. Seeing her dirty hands, Ivina shyly pulled her hands back. The nanny was showing Viola how to hold her. Support her bottom with one hand like this, Viola said carefully. I see. Innsburn asked, a bit annoyed, are you going to ignore me completely? Ivina was still recalling last night's scene. She frowned, thinking, that was dangerous. Last night, when I returned through the secret passage, my hands were still dirty. Ivina was still lost in thought. If anyone finds out, it will surely arouse suspicion. I must hide it. Viola had gently lifted her up against her body. All right, holding her like this is correct, right? Feeling her aunt's warmth, Ivina exclaimed happily, so warm, it's always been like this. This time, I will protect you at all costs because I love you so much, Annie. Recalling how Viola protected her in her past life, she told herself, standing beside them. Innsburn said in disbelief, she warmed up to you faster than to me. Very well, I'll leave her with you for a while. Viola looked at him, and replied cheerfully, "All right." Watching him leave, Ivina wondered, does father have something to do? Before she could think further, Viola lifted her up and said with a bright smile, "Shall we play together?" "Saintus, what should we talk about?" Ivina thought, if it's Annie telling a story, then Annie is the best at that too. Just then, Viola spoke up, how about we talk about Ferial? This made Ivina freeze, thinking, I take it back, anything but that. She continued to think awkwardly. Since that day, I haven't heard any news about Uncle, and I'm afraid to hear it. Viola said sincerely, about Ferial, I will apologize on his behalf. His actions are due to his current anxiety. Actually, he's not a bad kid. Even his desire to stay in the Sun Palace is because he wants to be with his older brother. Viola sighed and continued. They say that if you train in a sacred place, a holy mark will appear. The most sacred place in the palace is beside my brother, the saint. Even if it's just a superstition to rely on such superstitions, I can feel with a deep pain his feelings. Hearing these words, Ivina was heartbroken and burst into tears, crying a lot in Viola's arms. Ivina thought, if only I were Saintess Sophia, I could have saved my uncle. Note, Sophia, innocent the diver, the miraculous saintess who could bring people back from the dead. There was nothing she couldn't do. She performed a baptism for a child who was 2 years past the age. What seemed impossible became a reality. The priests of Sophia, the commoners, the fallen nobles, and those who missed their baptism due to illness. They all received baptism and became priests of Sophia. Normally, baptism is a ceremony that only the divine can perform. How did they do it? Because Sophia is the child of God. Thinking of something, Ivina realized, that's right back then. She clenched her fist as if showing her determination, thinking, I also feel a connection with what Father taught, the method of summoning sacred power and magic. Seeing this incredibly adorable action of hers, Viola, standing beside her, couldn't help but cover her mouth to keep from laughing out loud. After a moment, Viola finally spoke. Your Holiness, on the way here, I heard many things about you, my lady, therefore. Then she put the outfits she had bought on Ivina. The princess dresses looked incredibly lovely on her, making her look like a little angel. Viola said happily, I bought a lot of children's clothes. Everyone in the room couldn't help but exclaim excitedly, the Saintess is an angel. How adorable, truly a respectable princess. Her taste is wonderful. Seeing everyone like this, Ivina blushed in a bit of a panic, thinking, oh, this is so embarrassing. Father, please, make them stop. I'm a 16-year-old queen after all. Not noticing her pleading gaze, Innsbruck was still busy admiring her image in that princess dress. He raised a hand to his chin and marveled. The child looks like a fairy. Seeing him like that, Ivina thought helplessly. At times like these, all I need is a confident smile. When I open my eyes again, it will all be over. Everyone in the room was still excitedly saying, please, try this one. Oh my, this one is also very beautiful. After a moment, Innsbruck coughed lightly twice to make his presence known. Hearing the sound, Viola turned to look at him and said with a slight smile, Your Highness, has the discussion ended? Then she ran to him with Ivina in her arms and continued. The Saintess's eyes sparkled with joy, then suddenly became quiet. As if reminiscing about something, truly, the Saintess is a strangely captivating child. May I visit the Saintess often? Hearing her, Innsbruck asked with some curiosity, You said quiet? Viola quickly replied, That's right, the Saintess doesn't cry at all and is very calm. The maid standing nearby thought with a dark expression. The Saintess doesn't cry at all. She's not like a normal child. At this moment, Innsbruck spoke up. Please visit the Saintess often. It seems she is not wary of you. Being held by Viola, Ivina thought, Father made the right decision. Viola suddenly spoke up. Oh, it's time to depart. This made Ivina wonder in confusion. Depart to where? Realizing something, she clenched her fist and thought, could it be going out with Father? Feeling a little sad, Ivina watched Innsbruck retreating back. She continued to think, I rarely go out with Father on the days we planned in advance. The weather was often not favorable. Father's condition worsened day by day. I couldn't be by his side. Recalling the scene of her standing in front of her father's door, Ivina wondered, Annie, why does Father look so pained? He loved Mother very much. The greater the pain of loss, the more one suffers. She looked at Innsbruck and smiled. To be able to go out with Father, it's like a dream. Scene change. At this time in another place, a man's voice rang out. Are you ready? He smiled and continued. Make sure everything is clean. Check one more time. He was Serdion Tannen, the Pope. Looking at the people cleaning, he continued seriously. Because this is the saint's first outing, everything must be prepared perfectly. Everyone replied in unison, Yes, Your Holiness. At this moment, a boy walked up behind Saradion and announced softly, "Your Holiness, the second prince will arrive earlier than expected." Hearing this, he replied, "Oh, I see. We must prepare to welcome him. Follow me." As he walked, he reminded the boy, "Since you are of the same age, you must have many things on your mind, but you must behave properly, be calm and dignified. Is that clear, Johann?" The boy named Johann Tannen did not reply, only pursing his lips and staring at him. The temple appeared before Ibuna's eyes. Outside, the wind was cold. Ibuna was covered in a thick cotton cloak. She glanced at the magnificent scenery and mused. "So we were rushing to the temple? It's been a long time," her nanny noticed and exclaimed in panic. "Oh my, is the saintess shivering?" Innsburn frowned and turned to ask the nanny, "Should I wrap her in something warmer?" Ibuna didn't hear their conversation. She was still immersed in her own thoughts, bad memories flooding back every time she set foot in this place. Even so, Ibuna glanced up at him. Seeing her father, so young, was strange. In her memory, he was always sick and immersed in pain. This is the first time Ibuna couldn't help but be moved. "I'm seeing father look so healthy. Let's go inside." Ibuna also felt less afraid when father gently patted my back. The trembling immediately disappeared. She was currently immersed in happiness, so glad to have been able to return to the past. "Your Highness, second Prince Innsburn and the saintess have arrived at the temple." The priests on both sides bowed respectfully as the two entered, followed by the nanny. Ibuna was taking in the general view of the temple. The inside didn't seem to have changed much. She observed it all at once. "Welcome. I've been waiting for you all." The old pope was holding a holy staff, waiting for the father and child. He respectfully bowed slightly to offer his greetings. Second Prince Innsburn sends his greetings to the Pope. Ibuna also leaned over to look. She was also stunned. "The Pope of the past. It's hard to believe I'm meeting someone I've only seen in history books before." The Pope also noticed the second prince's gaze staring at him. He felt embarrassed and didn't dare to look back. She didn't pay much attention, continuing to observe him. Although he was over 90, he still looked full of life, truly amazing. Second Prince Innsburn leaned close to the Pope's ear and frowned. "I have brought the saintess here as promised. You should grant the protection blessing now, shouldn't you?" He also received a series of lightning-like glares staring at him. Why did I request to see the saintess for such a selfish purpose? Anyway, hearing that, the second prince warily stepped back several paces. The Pope smiled brightly, waving him back. "Come now. Don't be so stiff. Noble saintess." The Pope slowly took the saintess in his arms. "It is a great honor to finally meet you." Ibuna was also very happy. "This is wonderful. This feeling is so peaceful. He is really good at holding babies, even better than the nanny." The nanny standing behind watched with her mouth agape as the princess drowsily fell asleep within moments of the Pope holding her. "I feel like I could fall asleep." Ibuna really was lulled to sleep. Their conversation would probably last a while. A short nap wouldn't hurt. The princess was gradually drifting off to sleep when she suddenly felt a frightening gaze glancing in her direction. "No, I can't sleep." She startled awake. Behind that pillar, a child with deep-set eyes was looking this way. That child's gaze was so scary, so unsettling. Ibuna was very curious. Who is that child? Why is there a child with black hair and black eyes in the temple? Legends always write about these things. Black hair is the sign of a witch and red eyes are the sign of a beast. Ibuna kept glancing over and seeing that scary gaze. So she pressed fearfully against the Pope. Isn't that what the temple always taught? She couldn't understand. That child should have been shunned as a bad omen. The Pope also noticed the little princess's fear. He turned and smiled at the child hiding behind the pillar and instructed, "Johann, I told you to behave properly." Is Johann interested in the saintess? The boy didn't answer, still hiding behind that pillar. Her father wasn't surprised by the boy. He even asked about him. Johann's health seems to have improved considerably. The Pope nodded. "Yes, I was very worried thinking I would lose my only grandchild." Hearing that, Ibuna's eyes widened. "Oh, so he's a sacred child?" Thinking back, I also glared at a child like that without knowing how sickly he used to be. She felt regret in her heart. Her father inquired further. "Has the boy been baptized yet? He'll turn 2 next month, right?" The Pope also admitted, because of his poor health, the baptism has been postponed many times. Postponed. He lifted Ibuna higher and gently asked her opinion. "Since the saintess is here, would you like to attend the ceremony as well?" Ibuna had never thought of this, so the suggestion was quite surprising. Attend a baptism? Outside the temple, a few priests were performing a ceremony. On this side, was the second prince holding Abuna, a surprise baptism. Only the 5 great cathedrals on the continent are allowed to perform baptisms for infants, and this ceremony is only held on designated summoning days. To hold a baptism on a normal day like today, the Pope slowly held the holy staff and stepped forward. It was truly a privilege reserved for noble bloodlines. Abuna glanced at him with an admiring gaze. And the holy vestments, I've worn them too. She recalled old memories and the holy staff in the Pope's hand as well. This is a holy relic that can maximize sacred power and increase the ability to use it. Magic appeared, a dazzling light emanating from around the Pope. The more Abuna looked, the more curious she became. I've never created such a light with my own basic power. Seeing Abuna watching intently, the nanny leaned over and explained in a whisper, Saintis, that is the holy relic called Noah, a large relic like a boulder. Children climb on it to receive baptism. Suddenly, the Pope turned to look at the second prince. Excuse me. Innsbruck handed the Saintis to the nanny. She reached out to take her. Oh yes, please go ahead. The nanny watched with an admiring gaze. She whispered to the Saintis, It seems the Pope has asked the second prince to perform the sanctification part. Let's watch them from here. Second prince, Innsbruck, stepped forward to take the holy staff. Below was a pool of water. The Pope watched from behind as Innsbruck slowly approached the boulder. His gaze became more determined. He stopped at a fixed spot and began the sanctification, a sparkling light also surrounding him. Abuna smiled faintly. A powerful light, more brilliant than anything the Pope alone could create. She admired her father even more. Father is truly a great saint. It's done. Innsbruck turned and called, Now Johann, come here. The boy, having changed into formal attire, walked between the 2 holy figures. Abuna suddenly remembered the past. Her own baptism. What was it like? I can't remember clearly. In her hazy memory, Abuna was very young then, but the baptism that day was a dark memory. Dark shadows surrounded her. It seemed to be a painful memory. She paused slightly. Seeing Johann hesitate, the Pope gently comforted him. Don't be afraid. The Holy Spirit will bless you. As if encouraged, Johann slowly moved forward. Johann stepped towards the holy relic. A brilliant golden light enveloped the boy. That powerful light radiated outwards. Abuna watched without blinking. The Pope and the second prince also smiled as they watched. Johann was receiving the sparkling lights surrounding him. The baptism was being performed. Finally, the holy mark gradually appeared on his forehead. The baptism was complete. The priests at the side watched in amazement. Oh, the brilliant light from the holy relic. The priests quickly surrounded him. Master Johann, please accept this Oreo flower. Yes, no matter how brilliant the light of the relic is, we still need proof. Johann glanced at the Oreo flower in his hand. Abuna also noticed his expression. The boy didn't seem particularly interested, did he? The Oreo flower in his hand also glowed, but no longer caught Johann's attention. The boy glanced at her. Abuna couldn't understand, even though he's so young. Doesn't he realize how wonderful he is, especially when everyone around is filled with joy? The Oreo flower also bloomed. Abuna became flustered. But why are you looking at me with those eyes? What an amazing sight. We must record today's baptism in the history books immediately. It must be thanks to the presence of His Highness, the second prince. Of course it is. The Pope and 2 priests stood at the door to bid farewell to the second prince returning to the palace. Travel safely. Innsbruck said respectfully, Yes, thank you, Your Holiness. Suddenly, the Pope called out again, There's one more thing. He gently approached, touching Abuna's hand. I must greet the Saintis. I hope you grow up healthy and strong. Abuna happily responded with a fond gaze. Since I have chosen to become a Saintess, we will surely meet again soon. She used her gaze as a farewell. Your Holiness, please take care of yourself as well, and I hope that your nephew's gaze will become a little less cold. Now, thinking of Johann, she still felt a little scared. And so, the visit to the temple was over. But my day is not over yet. Upon returning to the imperial palace, Abuna lay in her cradle, thinking wearily, I'm completely drained of energy. I just want to fall asleep like this. But Abuna suddenly woke up. She used magic to leave the cradle. Then, moving to the other side of the wall, Abuna told herself, I can't waste time. I have to go to the secret passage one more time. Calm down. Draw the royal crest precisely. A light flashed in front of her, making it impossible for her to open her eyes. Finally, the light gradually disappeared. Abuna watched in astonishment. An underground staircase led to the secret passage. Abuna wondered, but there was no answer for her. What was that just now? Abuna held her head in fear, feeling as if she was about to realize something very important. What was it? What was it that made her even more bewildered? The meaning of what just happened. Ibuna vaguely guessed. Could it be related to the royal crest? Could it be? She climbed to a higher step. The relationship between divine power and magical power has always been a vague thing. Before leaving, Ibuna turned back to look at the magic one more time, and both operated on the same principle. Magic circles convert magical energy into patterns by controlling the flow of it. The royal crest converts divine energy into patterns by controlling its flow. Witches study the expansion of power through the application of magical energy, while priests only focus on refining the purity of divine energy. In other words, they had developed the same concept in two completely opposite directions. Ibuna also realized that, of course, these two sources of energy are not completely the same. They repel each other, and it's not surprising that no one has realized this. Ibuna clung to the wall, looking outside, but Ibuna waved her hand. What would happen if I tried to move magical energy in the same way I draw the royal crest? No sooner said than done. Ibuna began to cast magic following the crest. A special crest of her own was created. It's done. Ibuna was excited. I've finally found it. She rejoiced. An efficient way to use magical energy. She looked forward to the next time even more. Let's try it again. High-level transformation magic. Considered a spell that creates illusions to deceive others. Ibuna looked joyfully at the product she had created. It's a success again. So if magical energy creates magic circles, then the patterns from divine energy would be divine circles, right? After all, she pondered more deeply. Both powers are products of human will. She also remembered Saintess Sophia. Sophia must have known this. That was also why she drew the divine circles directly. Ibuna increasingly realized the wonder of it. It's not surprising that she was always exhausted after each baptism, if that was the case. I can do it too. The Saintess looked resolutely at the brilliant light of the holy relic. I can help you, Ferial. However, sometime after that, I hadn't seen him. At this moment, Ibuna was being held in her Aunt Viola's arms. She angrily gritted her teeth at her father. Has Ferial been moved to another palace? Do you really not know why he hasn't appeared? Her aunt's glaring eyes were fixed on the father who was calmly drinking tea. Ibuna leaned against her Aunt Viola. I want to see Uncle Ferial, but it's too difficult to meet him. Don't say that. Innsburn cut in. The boy is here. Aunt Viola was startled. Huh, where? The garden door was being pushed ajar. Ferial awkwardly clasped his hands together and slowly walked into the garden. Ferial. Aunt Viola smiled when she saw him. Ibuna watched, her eyes filled with affection as she looked at him. He looked even paler than before. Innsburn stood up and asked, You haven't forgotten our promise, have you? Ferial. Viola and Ibuna both didn't understand what was going on. What are father and he talking about? Ferial was at a loss as to how to reply. I apologize, Saintess. Recently, I have become too sensitive. Ferial didn't dare to look up. I couldn't control my emotions, and through you. Innsburn smiled as he watched his repentant younger brother. It was a thoughtless and disrespectful act. I deeply regret it. It will not happen again. Can you please forgive me? Ibuna froze, breaking into a cold sweat as she looked at Ferial in fear. That hot-tempered person was apologizing. She had been observing carefully all this time. What is happening? But it didn't seem like he was being forced to say this. And for someone as proud as him, apologizing to a baby was certainly not simple. Ibuna also forgave him. It's okay. She reached her hand out towards him. Of course, it was very painful at the time, but she had let it all go. I remember the expression on your face. Viola carried Ibuna closer to Ferial, letting their hands touch. I believe we can understand each other. So can't we become a loving family? Ibuna saw Ferial chuckle. With that in mind, I will bless you countless times. Ibuna raised her hand and touched Ferial's forehead. A holy symbol appeared before their eyes. Ferial remembered the scornful words of others. Even if you are royalty, without divine power, you are nothing. But at least the cousins seemed to get along. Pity and superficial compassion were all he had. He would live this way for the rest of his life. And so, Ferial received the blessing. Ibuna smiled brightly in the sunlight. There's no need to cry anymore. Ferial felt as if a saint was whispering something to him. What just happened? Hearing the noise, Viola and Innsburn ran to the spot. Aunt Viola was startled, pointing towards Ferial. What on earth is this? I saw the mark of the baptismal right on Ferial's forehead. Innsburn also approached and replied, I also saw it with my own eyes, though I can't make a judgment based on that alone. But perhaps the saintess has performed the baptismal rite for Ferial. Ibuna was happy being held by Ferial. Viola truly didn't believe it. Could that really happen? Her father nodded, explaining it his way. Normally, this is completely impossible. The baptismal mark we just witnessed, it's undeniable. It is that very symbol. Ferial also couldn't believe it, but he was so happy that he raised his hand to stop the tears streaming down his face. She watched him intently, but Viola still couldn't believe it, yet she trusted her brother. If you say so, brother, I have no choice but to believe. Innsburn waved to a nearby maid. Your Highness, you summoned me? Her father replied, we can verify it immediately. Then turned to the maid, you, bring the sacred object from my room here. The maid, knowing this was serious, hastily turned and left. Yes, your highness. Viola curiously asked Innsburn, is that the sacred object that was placed on the Saintess's bed? He nodded and explained, that sacred object was blessed to repel those without divine power. Today, when Ferial came to apologize, I put it away. And now that sacred object was here in Innsburn's hands. He held it up, looking firmly at him. If you can approach this sacred object without any hindrance and channel divine power into it, that will be irrefutable proof that you have received the baptism. Ferial's eyes were red, perhaps from just crying. Innsburn asked Ferial, do you still remember the contents of the book about the sacred object? Abuna, in his arms, thought of that book in her mind. The book about the sacred object, isn't that the official text for teaching priests? It contains basic knowledge about the sacred object and the holy sword. Even without divine power, did Uncle still study that book? Uncle. Her eyes shimmered as she looked at Ferial comfortingly. Ferial also nodded. All right, I'll try. The wet nurse took Abuna from the third prince's hands while he took the sacred object in his palm. Ferial slowly used the sacred object, simultaneously channeling his power into it. A dazzling light radiated out to both sides. Viola and Innsburn watched, equally surprised. The more Viola looked, the more intently she stared, her hand clutching the hem of her dress when she saw that light. That unmistakable holy light. Ferial truly possesses divine power. The Saintess must have performed that miracle. I truly congratulate you, Ferial. He also couldn't believe his eyes, looking up at the sacred object that had changed its shape after sensing the power he channeled into it. Ferial couldn't hold back, his eyes filled with tears, as oh happy. I have waited for this for so long. Abuna watched. This is the first time I've seen you smile. Ferial felt the happiness he had waited for so long. Time passed. It had been 3 months since I returned to the past. Evening at the palace. Divine power verified. Illusion magic verified. In the little princess's room, wondrous magic appeared. Mother's spellbook verified. And walking practice is ready. Abuna stood transfixed before the spellbook. Abuna was overjoyed. I can walk on my own without magic. I can even speak a little. She thought about it and felt it wasn't really a good idea. But should I speak? I don't know what a normal child can do at this age. Thinking about this, Abuna felt dejected and slumped down, but she quickly regained her spirits. Tucking the spellbook under her arm, she hurried off, thinking of another plan. For now, I have to keep it a secret and focus on carrying out the plan. At hand, outside in the hallway, the dark sky was covered with stars, creating a sparkling scene. I can go to many places, my room, the Imperial Dining Hall, and even the Emperor's reception room. If necessary, I can even go to Uncle Libelius's room. But just thinking about it, Abuna's expression became panic. But that place is too scary, so let's put that aside for now. Anyway, after successfully infiltrating, today's goal is to leave information gathering magic everywhere. This was Abuna's first plan. That magic is basic magic. Mouse ears and bird ears is considered a spell that allows one to hear everything around. By chanting the incantation in the language of witches, they can be hidden or retrieved in the shadows. Abuna recalled the image in her mother's spell book. I have memorized every word of the incantation perfectly. Just thinking about it, she felt ecstatic and wished for tomorrow to come quickly. If I start walking and talking tomorrow, I will surely be praised as a genius saintess. Abuna hugged the book and praised herself. A perfect plan. Suddenly, a sound was heard that I'm exhausted. Strange, incomprehensible sounds continuously echoed from the crack in the wall. She turned to look intently in the direction of the voice. Is the voice coming from the secret passage? Abuna moved closer. Could it be a break room? Did such a place ever exist in that passage? Yet through the crack in the wall, she could clearly see inside the room. They were talking in a very strange language. She immediately seized the opportunity. This place is perfect for gathering information. Abuna observed more intently. Very good. I will cast the spell here. Opening the book to the page about mouse ears and bird ears, she gently turned the page. Abuna was preparing to perform the magic, concentrating all her magical energy. And then, the magic did not appear. Abuna was stunned again. Still nothing. She stood frozen to one side. What is this? Why is there cat fur here? Did someone sneak it into the break room? A sound echoed from inside the break room. She leaned against the wall outside, tears streaming down her face that IT failed. Losing focus turned the spell into something completely different. No, Ibana regained her composure and focus. I could still try again. Once more, she comforted herself, so the next attempts produced magical lights, but none of them hit the mark. Ibana still encouraged herself to try just one more time. The perfect incantation for this place is Robin Zat. Then the voices inside became clear again. This is the first time the church council has been postponed. Did something happen to the Holy Father? She panicked, slumping to the ground. I did it 4 times and finally succeeded. Ibana could now completely understand the conversation inside. Prince Libelius is scheduled to visit the temple. We have to wait. This matter keeps being delayed. The two conversed back and forth. It seemed like some plan was afoot. As for the special witch law, that's not surprising. That's why the atmosphere in the Imperial Palace must be getting worse. Ibana sat pressed against the wall, surprised to hear about that magic law. The special witch law has it already started being discussed. As she was lost in thought, a voice of praise rang out from inside. Even so, we've been quite happy recently thanks to the Saintess. Ibana blushed slightly. They're talking about me. Is it true that everyone is buzzing about going to the Sun Palace? Oh, a woman's voice chimed in with admiration. It's truly so strange. The Saintess is like a cloud of cotton candy. The image of her leaning against an angel, shyly bowing her head in embarrassment. Truly, they wished, if only I had a reason to visit the Sun Palace. Hearing the storm of praise, Ibana grinned from ear to ear. Please, everyone, stop. She'll have her official debut soon, won't she? They then changed the subject to the Saintess in the hearts of the people. Anyway, recently even Prince Varial's baptism. Ibana's face was bright red. This is the first time. I'm not used to being praised this much. That was a big event. From now on, baptisms might no longer depend on age, the two people in the room commented. Ibana sat listening dazedly, but it seemed that wasn't quite certain. I tried to draw the patterns at the temple, but it seems she couldn't do it. After hearing this, a giant question mark appeared in Ibana's mind. Couldn't do it. She found it very strange. Isn't it just a matter of channeling divine power? It seems even the delegates couldn't do it. They nodded while talking. Ibana was also thinking about that issue. When I tried, after a certain amount of divine power was concentrated, the patterns appeared automatically. But she stared intently at her small hands. I can't believe that was considered a failure. The image of Sophia appeared in Ibana's mind. That IT must be a miracle that only a true saintess can perform. As for Ibana now, her divine power was only enough to reach the lowest level of a priest. If she could learn to talk, it would be perfect. Ibana became dazed. What did they say? She felt dizzy. The saintess is developing a bit slowly compared to other children her age. This was like a dagger piercing her heart. Wait a minute, right? Normally this would be the time when one starts to talk. As long as she is healthy, that's more than enough. These words completely contradicted what Ibana was thinking just then, praising herself as a genius saintess because she could talk. Ibana's worldview seemed to completely collapse. On reflection, I've never really spoken my mind properly. I rarely express my thoughts in words. Ibana fell into contemplation. If I keep making mistakes like this, sooner or later my true abilities will be exposed. After completing the first part of her self-made plan, Ibana would carry out the next part of the plan. I will go straight to the next destination from the break room. There was some information she had overheard. This was the first time the Council of Cardinals had been postponed because the church council did not take place. There was no one in the Emperor's reception room, so Ibana casually snuck in, left the mouse and bird ears, and slipped out. This new magic is really useful, Ibana exclaimed. It seems Uncle Libelius also went to the temple. She slowly stood up. This is my only chance. But Ibana wasn't too confident in herself. I can't believe I dared to enter Uncle's room. I never thought of this before. Ibana recalled the words of praise in the break room. Then, thanks to the Saintess, I can enjoy this. Just her being healthy is enough. Thanks to that, Ibana began to regain her spirits. She clenched her small hands, thinking, I just need a little courage. Ibana became much more determined. It's okay. I can do it. After all, I am someone who deserves praise. The Emperor's room had specks of magical power flying around, but there wasn't a single person in sight. The starlight from outside was shining into the room, making the Emperor's room sparkle. But I'm really here. Ibana trembled as she pushed the door open and stepped inside. She began to close her eyes and focus on the main plan. Ibana muttered, let's get this over with quickly. Concentrating her magical energy, a magical power began to radiate around her. This time the magic was called Canary Gnawing Biver. Within the magic circle, a magical fragment of a canary appeared. Looking at the magic fragment, Ibana sighed, "Thank heavens, it's a success. Now I have to get out of here immediately." She hurriedly left. My only memory of this place is being brought here by him. Suddenly, Ibana noticed something strange. She turned her head back. What is that? Her eyes looked around in surprise. Why are there traces of magic in Uncle's study? Ibana worried. Is that a magical tool? She gaped as she looked. At a glance, on the bookshelf appeared the book The Smart Gatekeeper. She thought to herself that it looked like a normal children's book. The more Ibana thought, the more curious she became. She used magic to take the book down. But why does Uncle have a children's book on his bookshelf? It's so suspicious. Ibana was using magic to bring the book down. Could this be Uncle's weakness? Suddenly, a loud noise from outside startled her. Outside, there were footsteps accompanied by a voice. "You've awakened your divine power? How old are you?" "Yes, 10 years old." The emperor's room door was opened by someone from outside. "After receiving the baptism, I prayed constantly." Libelius stood silently by the door, looking into the study. "I just heard a sound in the room." The room was dimly lit by the peaking stars and moon. Behind the emperor was Ferial. Ibana quickly hid inside a desk drawer, covering her mouth to not make a sound because she was so scared. "Uncle, why are you back already?" "Yes, me too." Ferial also nodded in agreement with the emperor, making Ibana tremble with fear. "I heard something too." Outside, Ferial's shadow was approaching the desk drawer. "It fell here," he said, looking over. Their eyes met. Ferial saw Ibana hiding in the corner of the desk, and nearby was a children's book. "Is something wrong?" Libelius was entering from the door. Ferial hesitated. "This is a book. I've never seen it in the library." He quickly picked it up and showed it to Libelius, stopping his brother just as he was about to get closer. Ibana trembled. "Uncle Ferial, you saw me." Seeing the title of the book, the emperor sighed. "This book is for children. It's not suitable for your age." But he insisted, "It's okay. I really like funny stories." Ferial was pulling down a burlap sack to put the book inside. Then he slowly dropped the empty sack right next to the table leg. "Brother, let me borrow this book, okay?" Ferial glanced over, signaling to Ibana, then casually turned back to look intently at the emperor. Ibana immediately understood and slowly crawled out. She quickly climbed into the bag. Ferial also turned back to check. Libelius was leading him over to the bookshelf. "There are a few more on the other shelf," he said unconsciously as his eyes were glued to the back. "Thank you, brother." After settling inside the bag, Ibana thought to herself, "I just did it without thinking. Should I have gotten into this bag? Why did Uncle help me?" The two in front were again speaking in words she couldn't understand at all. After the emperor introduced him to other books of the same genre, Ferial, with a pile of things in his arms, asked for leave. "Well then, I'll be going. Thank you for lending me these precious books." By the way, Ferial, he hadn't even reached the door before Libelius stopped him. He frowned and asked, "You brought a bag. Why not put the books in it?" Ferial smiled without revealing any flaw and replied, "There are too many. I'd rather carry them anyway." Inside, Ibana was breaking out in a cold sweat, but he became even more flustered when he saw Libelius narrow his eyes. I also have a lunchbox inside." The emperor was surprised. "You brought a late-night snack? How strange." Ferial became even more flustered. If he stayed any longer, his cover would be blown. He quickly bolted. "They say eating a lot helps divine power grow. Anyway, I'm leaving now. Good night, brother." For the first time, the emperor saw his brother in such a hurry. Good night. Outside in the hallway, Ferial was also running at full speed. The butler's voice rang in his ear. "Welcome, Prince. Your blankets are ready." The butler just managed to hear the voice. "Oh, I understand. Thank you." But the person was already gone. Inside the bag, Ibana felt like she was spinning. "The shaking is too much. I feel like I'm going to throw up." The shaking finally stopped. Have we reached Uncle's room yet? I don't even dare to dream of getting out safely. Oh my goodness. Ferial had rushed back to his room to empty the bag. Ibana fell out onto a cushion. "You little rascal." He looked at his niece in astonishment. Ibana was also very surprised, but she quickly told herself, "This is not the time to be surprised. Right now, I have to pretend to be an innocent and pure baby." But Ferial immediately walked over and asked, "You can walk already, can't you? You came to my room to cause trouble last time too, right?" Ibana froze at her uncle's words and hastily explained, "No, that time, I'm sorry." Ferial froze. A silent atmosphere enveloped the room. A moment later, Ferial dazedly realized, hey, you can talk. Abuna then knew she had slipped up. Oh no, it's ruined. Ferial's glaring eyes darted around Abuna. She turned to stone right on the bed. What should I do in this situation? If my identity is exposed, I'll be sent to the temple. The more Abuna thought, the more she trembled with fear. She didn't dare to think of the outcome. Die like this? But contrary to her speculation, he reached out and playfully pinched her chubby cheeks. Ferial said while pinching her cheeks, you gave me the holy mark. Ferial smiled and continued, so I will keep your secret. Abuna's eyes shimmered as she looked at him. He gently let her go. That makes us even, right? Ferial knelt down and murmured to Abuna so that only the two of them could hear, I don't know why you're hiding this, but I promise to keep my word. Is that okay? Seeing his happy face, Abuna also felt at ease. Ferial looked at Abuna and said, but why you have to hide it? I don't understand, but He added, this is okay, right? He looked incredibly gentle and kind. Her eyes shimmered on the verge of tears. She cried, letting out a sob. Seeing this, Ferial said, What is this? Why are you crying? The butler came in and asked, Prince, is something wrong? He quickly turned and said, it's nothing, it's okay. A voice spoke up, causing his hand, which was raised in midair, to suddenly freeze. Thank you for helping me. He was embarrassed. Ferial quickly reached out to wipe her tears and said, hey, wipe your face and then talk. You're clearly still just a crybaby. Abuna was still crying, sob. She wiped her tears and said, sorry. Seeing that, he said, why do you keep apologizing to me? Save those words for your wet nurse. She was very worried when you were developing slowly. She asked herself, but how can I change? Ferial looked at her and added, what a strange thing to say. Well, all right, you probably have your own struggles. Don't feel so inferior. Keep trying. He called out Uriel. She crawled slowly towards him. Ferial said gently, your face looks funny. I heard my brother is giving you a name. She was puzzled by the name, Uriel. Abuna found it strange. What's with this name? I've never heard it. Before, it was Ivina. That was the name her mother had given her. She thought, that's right. Now there is no one left who can name me. She turned her back to him, thinking, if I change my name, I'll have nothing left for my mother. He saw her reaction and asked, you don't like that name? She turned and hastily explained, no, it's not that I don't like it. But he said, I can tell everything from your expression. Ferial still said cheerfully, if you don't like it, just tell me. I'll talk to my brother about changing the name later. It's not decided yet anyway. She was incredibly surprised. Really? He asked Abuna, you want a different name? She smiled and said, yes, I do. To be called once again by the most beloved name. She then mentioned a name, Sophia. He repeated, Sophia. She explained, no, that's not what I meant. Abuna wondered why she had said that name. Why? Why Sophia? She quickly said, Ivina. My name is Ivina. He replied, I understand. I will tell him. She said again, Ibina. No, it's Ivina. He thought with one hand on his chin. All right, Ibina. That pronunciation is fine, right? Her expression was stunned, but he insisted, of course, I pronounced it correctly. Not wrong at all. You pronounced it correctly. Helpless, Ivina could only pick up a pen. I finally have to write on paper. Seeing her action, he thought to himself, the kid knows how to write too? She said, it's not too late to learn how to write, you know. Holding the paper, he said, it's fine. It was your brother who made an unreasonable request that caused the delay. Hearing that, she thought, what request? He asked her, anyway, you should return soon. Do you have a plan? She said, I'm fine. I can go back by myself. Hearing that, he asked alone how. She slowly got off the bed and said, that's a secret. Ivina slowly lowered her legs. She was startled. The books have all fallen to the ground. I'll pick them up. He also quickly ran towards her. It's okay, kid. Don't try to pick up things as big as your whole body. She said, but those are your books, uncle. Ivina picked up the book with reverence. This one is The Wise Gatekeeper, the fairy tale that radiates magic. She turned to look at him with sparkling eyes. Ferial felt confused. She said, oh, hey, can you lend me this book, please? Seeing her ask to borrow it, he was very relaxed. But besides that, I can lend it to you, but my older brother said not to let outsiders see it. She turned to look at him with sparkling eyes. Is that okay? He comforted, it's fine, brother. He turned his face away. Up to you, kid. She happily held the book. Wow, thank you, uncle. Before leaving, he reminded her, just be careful not to let my older brother know. Before he could finish speaking, he couldn't see her anymore. Where did that little kid fly off to? She ran off holding the book and said loudly, Uncle, thank you. I'm leaving now. She held the book and thought, even though Uncle Ferial helped me keep the secret, I can't reveal the secret passage. Suddenly she fell. Ivina felt that her body was not right. Both her physical strength and magical power were now depleted. Maintaining the transformation magic in 3 places was really too much. She thought, the final result is that I stepped on Uncle Liberius's tail. So that counts as a success, right? She held up the book. Now let's try reading a little. She read intently. A source of light enveloped her, making Ivina's eyes widen. She stared at the letters inside. Huh, what is this? She felt surprised. There are no letters at all. She felt confused. The remaining magic from before had completely disappeared. What just happened? The feeling just now was clearly like purification. Everyone was extremely bewildered upon hearing this news from the royal physician. What? The saintess has a cold? Ivina, her whole body aching and gaunt, thought to herself, after going all over the place yesterday, this is to be expected. The royal physician was very serious when he learned of the diagnosis. Yes, but it's not a serious illness. Yesterday, did the saintess do anything strenuous? Ivina's personal maid was extremely confused. She rolled her eyes and mumbled, the saintess has been resting in her room the whole time. The nanny thought for a moment and stated her conclusion. The saintess can't even crawl anywhere yet. Yesterday, she lay quietly in her crib all day. Ivina was truly very tired. Her cheeks were flushed with fever. Ivina felt extremely guilty, sorry for making everyone worry. The royal physician carefully instructed the two. The temperature has gone down. Now make sure the saintess doesn't catch a draft. The nanny's face was grave. She was extremely worried about Ivina. Yes, although Ivina could hear the entire conversation between the royal physician and her young aunt, she didn't feel that she was wrong. I don't regret it. I've left mouse and bird ears everywhere I've been. Now I can grasp any information throughout the palace. Luckily, her mouse and bird ears were working. Ivina heard all the conversations around the castle, no matter where she was. Have you heard the news? They're introducing a new policy in Hansteria. Then another conversation. Have you been to the new shop in the capital? Is there any new trend in high society lately? Ivina was a little tired. However, she had really discovered many interesting things. What I just discovered is, currently, my grandfather, the reigning emperor, is ill by my grandfather's order. Uncle Liberius is taking on unimportant errands. Although those close to him were not happy, he still did not show his emotions. I think I understand the reason. What he truly wants is just. Suddenly someone's voice interrupted her train of thought. You can't. It's the saintess's nap time. Ivina startled and opened her eyes. She heard that voice again, sorry, but really just for a moment. Ivina immediately suspected. This voice, is it Uncle Ferial? The nanny was trying to prevent Ferial from disturbing Ivina's sleep as politely as possible, even if you say so. Before she could finish her sentence, Ivina's call rang out. Even Ferial was drawn to it. Foo-ah. Ferial immediately understood Ivina was calling him. He laughed happily and even teased her. Isn't the saintess sleeping? Ivina's whole body trembled. She froze stiff as a board, silently cursing Ferial. What a fake smile. While she was still reeling in terror from Ferial's reaction, she was startled again because he was running towards her. Long time no see. Is the saintess's body better? Ivina groaned. His call surprised Ivina a little. She opened her eyes wide to look at Ferial. He knew that perhaps no one had told Ivina yet, so he quickly informed her. Your name has been decided. I came here to both visit and inform you. It's unknown if Ivina heard what Ferial just said. She was only focused on the single thought in her head. Rinhat, that's the royal family's surname. But wait, wasn't Saintess Sophia's surname innocent? So does that mean from now on I can call Dad, Dad? Ferial was startled to see tears streaming down Ivina's cheeks. He knelt awkwardly by her crib and asked, Why are you crying again? Ivina spoke with a lisp, Nam Nhung Na Nhai. Ferial's eyes twitched. What are you saying? Hey, are you in pain anywhere? Ivina smiled to reassure him. It's just a cold. Right after that, she heard Ferial's mocking laughter. How ridiculous. After that exclamation from Ferial, the entire room fell silent. Ivina really wanted to provoke Ferial. She just kept giggling foolishly without answering. Hee. Ferial poked one of Ivina's cheeks. Not going to tell me. Huh. But the reason I came here is for the children's book. Ivina was a little surprised that he asked her for that. The children's book? Ferial answered her. That's right. My brother asked if I had finished reading it. Where did you put it, kid? Ivina pointed towards the tall glass cabinet in the distance. Over there. But you already asked. It's only been a day since I borrowed it. Ferial stood up and walked towards where Ivina had pointed. That's right. I was also very surprised. It must be the children's book he loved as a child, probably. Ferial had to bend down. He slid his entire arm deep inside to get the book out. Huh, why is it hidden so well? Ivina slowly sat up. It was quite difficult for her. As Ivina sat up, she thought to herself, this book is no ordinary object. It's definitely a book with traces of magic. As time passed, That book became an ordinary children's book. Was it affected by purification magic? Should I return to Uncle? I want to find out more. Suddenly, Fariel's joyful cry was heard. Ivina looked up towards him. Ah, got it. Surprisingly, at that moment, the bedroom door burst open. Next, Innsburn's voice rang out. Why are you looking for Fariel here? Liberus, who was with him, quickly answered. Who knows? The servant said the kid came here. Hearing that, Innsburn mumbled to himself. Fariel really seems to be interested in this place lately. As soon as he entered the room, Innsburn saw Fariel kneeling on the floor, his arm deep inside the cabinet. What are you doing there? You said not to let others know about the book. Liberus is also here. He stared at Fariel, waiting for his answer. Both Fariel and Ivina were startled and afraid. Rarely did they both have the same thought. Can't let them find out. Innsburn pointed to the side of the crib and asked Fariel, what are you looking for? The chair is still next to the bed. Fariel fell into a complete panic. He stammered for a long time before managing to say, this is a toy. His whole body was drenched in sweat. It rolled in here. Then, Esbern kindly offered, let me help you. Ivina cried out silently, alarm bells ringing in her heart. Dad, don't be so kind. What do I do now? What do I do now? Fariel refused Esbern's kind offer. No need. I can find it myself. Esbern was quite surprised because he rarely refused his offers of help before. Libris suddenly spoke up. What are you doing? Ivina thought to herself, I have to save Uncle quickly. Suddenly, Ivina froze. A good idea had just flashed through her mind. Ivina slowly lowered her hands. She reassured herself, that's right, I can definitely do it. Seeing Liberus looking for her, Ivina became even more determined. This is the only way. At that moment, Ivina's nanny entered with a tray of cakes and tea in her hands. Prince, please have some tea and snacks. She immediately saw Ivina standing in the middle of the crib. Ivina was very determined from now on. I will take my first steps, becoming a grown-up child. The fact that Ivina could stand up and take wobbly steps stunned everyone there. Stunned, the tray of cakes and tea in the nanny's hands lost its support and immediately went into free fall. The nanny used all her strength to scream loudly. Look, she was so happy she burst into tears. Oh, the saintess has stood up, ah? Ivina trembled because her legs were still quite weak. Good. Hurry up, switch the book with the rattle. She looked towards Fariel and saw him still sitting there dumbfounded. Don't just space out. Fariel immediately came to his senses and quickly found a way to fix it. Ivina cried without tears. I've attracted their attention. That's right. Ivina stomped one foot firmly on the mattress. Esbern was happier than if he'd won the lottery. He exclaimed, not just standing up, but walking. Ivina's face flushed red, just because of two words, hug me. The nanny then screamed again, making Liberus, who was right next to her, jump in surprise. Oh my, Saintess, you're babbling too. Ivina reached out her hands towards Esbern and smiled, babbling, Dad. Ivina's action and words surprised Esbern so much that he was stunned. He didn't know what to do. Esbern squeezed his eyes shut, and very quickly after, his face also flushed red. I admit my defeat. Liberus's eyes widened, and he asked Esbern, Who? Why did you lose? A few days later, inside the luxurious room of a family belonging to a branch of the royal family, the office of the Esbern family, Claudi's brows were tightly furrowed. He was a little angry about something. Why did you suddenly say that? He is Claudia Linville, the Duke of Enzon, the second prince's close aide. However, the person he was trying to question, Esbern, looked at him with innocent, vacant eyes. What did I say? Claudi then truly exploded. He screamed loudly without any restraint towards Esbern. You declared your defeat to the Saintess. The maids are buzzing about it over there. Esbern laughed with amusement. I was wondering what I did wrong. The more Claudi scolded, the more intense he got. He roared like a lion. Why do you keep ignoring my words? If I also become a baby, will you listen to me? Esbern was completely used to this kind of nonsensical conversation with Claudi. He exclaimed, what kind of logic is this now? Claudi got fed up. He screamed again, shouldn't you listen to me just once? For once? Esbern walked from the window towards Claudi. He casually replied, if it had value, I would have listened. His words left Claudi speechless for a moment. Then he continued, feeling that he shouldn't lose the argument to Esbern. Seeing you adopt the Saintess is enough to understand. Your future wife will surely hate you for it. I'm absolutely sure of it. Esbern turned away, but still said back to Claudi, don't worry about me. If she doesn't accept Ivina, I don't need her either. Claudi was angered by his words. His whole body trembled with rage. Look, there he goes again. Esbern turned back and looked at Claudi. He said firmly, there's a reason for my decision to adopt. Claudi immediately asked him, what reason? Esbern slowly recalled. He answered Claudi's question, actually, This child resembles the illegitimate child of my father. Outside the window that Esbern was looking at was a peaceful green lawn in the early morning sun. Ivina was there. Her nanny had carried her out to this spot to sunbathe. Ivina's face was blank because she was using her mouse and bird ear eavesdropping magic. The corner of her mouth twitched a few times. Illik, the nanny appeared out of nowhere. Your Highness Invina, the weather is so beautiful today, isn't it? Ivina's eyes rolled upwards. She thought to herself, yes, but that's not important. What? Why did Dad come to that conclusion? She was still using her eavesdropping magic. At that moment, Esbern had told Claudie, the child is strange. She has a face like mine. Her eyes are like mine too. Ivina was utterly bewildered. She really wanted to scream at Esbern. Of course, I'm your daughter. Inside the room, Esbern was still engrossed in conversation with Claudie. Moreover, when Ivina spoke, her first word was, she called me. He remembered the shape of Ivina's mouth at that time. Be bro teach there. Ivina jumped. She sighed to herself. You heard wrong, Dad. She ignored the conversation that continued in her ear. Claudie asked Esbern, really? He replied softly, yes. Ivina's mouth fell open in astonishment. So now, in my dad's head. She imagined Esbern would be very distressed despite appearing calm on the outside. I can't believe it. Shouldn't my youngest sibling be Ferial? But don't worry, my little sibling, I will adopt you, protect you from the world's judgmental gaze. As a saint, I will overcome this trial. At that point, her mother, Elizabeth, would come to Esbern's side and exclaim, oh, my love, how can you have such a kind heart? Esbern would then say emotionally, you understand me? Are you my destiny? We are truly fated for each other. Then suddenly Mrs. Elizabeth would seriously say to Esbern, no, that's that, and this is this. I don't like men with too much baggage. Let's break up. Ivina tore at her hair, feeling guilty. I will be an obstacle to this love. The nanny beside her was startled by her action. Ivina, are you not feeling well somewhere? The conversation between Claudie and Esbern continued. Claudie obviously couldn't believe Esbern had such a childish thought. No, at the Emperor's age, that's impossible. Moreover, if it's really royal blood, why is one eye pink? Esbern explained to Claudie, we already have the precedent of Ferial. Claudie continued to refute his point regarding Ferial. The Emperor has already made it clear to us. There was a woman he was close to. Esbern casually replied to Claudie. Perhaps this time he can't say it. Claudie was annoyed that Esbern kept bringing up random things. He shouted at Esbern while throwing some papers towards him. What the hell are you talking about? Are you really out of your mind? Esbern had also lost his composure by now. He also shouted at Claudie, but I clearly heard the child call me brother. Claudie frowned, then gritted his teeth and hissed out each word. Why are you so hurt just because of that? At your age, is it brother or father? Esbern ignored him and started talking to himself. Fatherly love is so warm, so touching. Claudie lightly scolded Esbern, this overthinker. Regardless of who the child's father is, stop joking around. Check the documents I brought. Esbern turned his head to look at him, his playful demeanor gone. Suddenly, he only said 3 words that made Claudie's eyes widen. Take them back. Claudie froze stiff. These are documents sent by the Emperor. Esbern told him, I know, but right now national affairs are his. If there's a problem, everything will fall on Dad's head, while Dad has tricked Grandfather to transfer political work to Uncle, after Uncle has signed those papers. Later, when Dad becomes Emperor, it will be very difficult to make corrections. In the end, me and Mom, we have to stop that. We have to create an opportunity. Ivina's nanny carefully observed her every gesture and action. Princess Ivina. Suddenly, Ivina tightly gripped the hem of the nanny's dress. She became very serious as she called out 2 words, duh. Ivina had decided to change the outcome of Esbern's life, because I am your daughter. The nanny was confused and asked Ivina, while guessing to herself, huh? She quickly picked up Ivina and ran as fast as she could to Esbern's place. The nanny's eyes crinkled with delight. Yes, let's go see the second prince. Let's go see Ivina's papa. Although Ivina looked very calm on the outside, she was very anxious on the inside. Hurry, before Dad sends those documents away. The 2 of them had just approached the door from a distance when they heard someone's conversation. Yesterday's sun and today's sun are a little different. That's natural. Today's sun has not yet set because yesterday has not yet ended. Ivina immediately thought of a possibility. Are these grandfather's words? If it is truly for the prosperity of the empire, choose wisely. Claudia was still trying to reason with Insburn. That's all, telling you to take the throne. Think about it again. I'm leaving now. Insburn suddenly said to him, anyway, I don't want to threaten his position anymore. He hadn't even finished his sentence before he was startled. It was Ivina and her nanny. The two of them quickly threw open the door, causing a gust of wind to blow in and send the documents in Claudia's hand fluttering. No, Dad. Grandfather was right. Dad. Insburn was stunned by Ivina's sudden appearance. He exclaimed, Ivina. Ivina thought to herself, only Dad is worthy of the position of Crown Prince. Claudia was utterly bewildered. He shouted, ah, all the documents have. The nanny holding Ivina also had a shout, ah, where did this wind come from? But Ivina didn't care about it all. The only concern in her heart now was, what should I do with this pile of documents? Suddenly, when Ivina looked up, what caught her was a large line of text printed in bold on the paper, that the special law on witches cannot be given to Uncle Liberus. Ivina startled and covered her mouth, knowing she had spoken out of turn. Claudia also stared wide-eyed at Ivina. Then immediately after, he had to startle and turn his head back because the coffee cup on the table suddenly spilled. He was stunned speechless by the strange things that were happening. Claudia slowly turned his head to look at Ivina in utter horror. He suddenly exclaimed, this child is the saintess. Could it be that just now? Ivina quickly cut him off. Uncle, I don't know, Uncle. She made a cute face at Claudia. Nice to meet you. What's your name? Please play with Ivina. Claudia couldn't react in time to Ivina's barrage of questions. He stammered for a long time before finishing 2 sentences. Wasn't that just now? Ivina thought to herself, I'll show them the result of my training with this cuteness. Claudia seemed to be trying to suppress something within himself. He gritted his teeth. Now is not the time of play. Yes. Then suddenly, he reached out and took Ivina into his arms. In the end, the effort to suppress his soft spot really didn't work. Defeat, I accept. Insburn behind him scratched his head and said, he who laughs today will be laughed at tomorrow. Ivina felt she was very lucky. She breathed a sigh of relief. Good, the plan was a success. When Ivina was held securely in Insburn's arms, the nanny bent down to deal with the mess on the floor, while Claudia didn't know what to do with the paper that the coffee had spilled on. What should I do? Ivina then spoke up to apologize to everyone. Sorry. Claudia tilted his head and smiled to reassure her. It's not the saintess's fault. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind blew. Ivina smiled back at his kindness. She thought to herself, I didn't expect Priest Linville to be Dad's friend. He's clearly Uncle Liberus's man. She saw Claudia walking while scratching his head, trying to find a solution. This is a complete mess. Insburn asked him, is that all? Claudia answered him. It's the papers related to the special laws on witches. I'll probably have to go directly and request their cancellation. Ivina's mouth dropped open in astonishment. She wanted to take advantage of the situation. Since it's come to this, should I probe a little? So, Ivina quickly babbled and asked Insburn, Ma, magic spec. Insburn didn't wait for his daughter to finish her sentence and immediately corrected what she was saying, special law on witches. Ivina was startled. She awkwardly corrected her words amidst the giggles of Claudia and the nanny. That's special law on witches. Immediately, she had to lament. Oh, Dad. Ivina smiled at everyone. Ivina doesn't quite understand, but isn't that a bad thing? Insburn was surprised to hear her say that. A bad thing? Probably. Seeing Insburn's reaction, flowers of joy were blooming in Ivina's heart. That's right. How could Dad support it? She had just finished her sentence when she immediately heard Insburn's words. It's probably not a bad law. The smile on Ivina's lips froze. Her whole body turned to stone. She looked up at Insburn, seeing him still explaining to her, although there are many conflicting opinions, it is truly a necessary law for the Empire. Ivina was shocked. What? Dad, are you supporting the special law on witches? Ivina tried to find a way to prevent this bad thing from happening. She wanted to save the situation one last time. It can definitely hurt people. Hearing that Ivina still intended to stop him, Insburn suddenly thought of an interesting situation. Could it be that the child overheard the maid's conversation? He quickly reassured Ivina. This law is not dangerous to the people. However, Ivina's whole body was now ice cold. She thought seriously, that's not it, Dad. That special law on witches, don't you see, Dad? How many people have cried? How many have fallen? His next words made Ivina even more afraid. Draft a new version and bring it to me. Claudia asked Insburn again. So I'll cancel this version first. Okay. Insburn answered him, no problem. I will ask for permission from my brother and the temple. The situation is temporarily stable. Ivina cried silently in her heart. The situation is terrible, more like it. No, this is an opportunity to point out the dangerous points of the law. So she quickly said to Insburn, Ivina also wants to go see Uncle Liberus. Insburn was very surprised that she actively asked to visit Liberus today. Isn't my older brother a scary person? Ivina's eyes sparkled. She replied coaxingly to Innsburn, no, he's not. I really like Uncle Liberus. She had only just said that, and both Innsburn and Claudi's hearts had melted. Defeat Part 2. Innsburn carried Ivina and quickly moved to Liberus's office. Claudi also completely obeyed and followed behind him. Yes, Ivina's nanny stayed in Innsburn's office to clean up. Have a safe trip. Two men, one in front and one behind, escorted a little girl to where she wanted to go. The scene was a bit funny. Ivina suddenly pouted and exclaimed, "Mu." It turned out she was casting the mouse and bird ear spell. First, I have to take out the ear, Innsburn said to Liberus's butler. I've come to see my older brother. The butler respectfully bowed and complied with Innsburn's request. Yes, please wait a moment. Ivina waited with the two of them outside, feeling anxious in her heart. The special law on witches could condemn a person as a witch just for being found with a magical item. If I make an ear here, a magical item. Before she could even think about the next steps, she suddenly heard Liberus's voice. You can come in. Ivina seized the opportunity and quickly ran straight into the room without waiting for permission from the owner himself. Wow, is this Uncle Liberus's room? She silently affirmed one thing in her head. He will definitely be suspected of being a witch. Her overly swift action caused the people there to panic. Liberus shouted, "What's going on?" Innsburn also had to run after her. Ivina. However, once you've started, you have to see it through. Ivina used all her strength to run. I will show them the danger of this law. While running enthusiastically, she suddenly tripped on the carpet. He shouted in alarm. Ivana, be careful. Ivina fell face down right next to the table leg. She quickly turned her head and said loudly to attract the attention of everyone in the room, what is this? Esbern didn't immediately care about the thing she had just discovered. He was only focused on worrying about Ivina. Are you hurt anywhere? As soon as he looked up, the atmosphere inside the room froze. There was something glowing under the table leg. A magical item. That item suddenly emitted light and a rather large surge of power. Esbern and Liberos immediately reacted. Ivina knew that she had succeeded. Low-level magic will dissipate on its own when not. Agitated, Esbern looked up in alarm and asked Liberos, "Brother, what is this?" Liberos quickly denied it. "I don't know." Ivina thought to herself, according to the law, you will be considered a witch, therefore, you will immediately receive a death sentence. Esbern was a little angry. He shouted at Liberos, "Then why is a magical item in your room?" Ivina really wanted to scream to warn Esbern, "Realize it, this law will definitely be abused." Liberos shouted loudly, "It's definitely a plot, definitely the enemy's doing, that's right, it's the servants." Hearing the words he had just said, both Ivina and Esbern turned their heads in surprise to look. The more Liberos spoke, the more agitated he became. They don't like him assisting the Grand Duke, because many people support him for the throne. Ivina struggled to get up. That's not it. Esbern began to question Liberos. "Brother, why are you saying such things?" Ivina looked at Esbern, startled. She knew that he was truly angry. Even with a small suspicion, one should be careful with words towards subordinates. Everyone's life depends on our words. Liberos asked Esbern, "Are you going to side with them? That could be slander. Fulfill your duty, Saint." Esbern frowned in annoyance as Liberos spoke to him that way. Liberos still didn't truly know that he was unintentionally becoming a villain. All witches must be killed, sparing no one. Esbern asked Liberos, "Do you really think so?" Ivina tugged lightly on his sleeve. Esbern was drawn by this action of hers. He saw Ivina was crying, but crying without a sound. He quickly scooped her up into his arms. Liberos asked Esbern, "What are you doing here today? Go back, but investigate the surroundings." "You certainly have the right to do that." Esbern carried Ivina and walked quickly to the door. "Let me do it." Liberos was obviously unable to believe that Esbern would take this responsibility upon himself. What? Esbern just turned his head and replied with a single sentence. "I will be in charge of both the investigation and the law. You should rest, brother." Ivina was surprised by his decision. She closed her eyes and rested her head against him to be at peace. 3. Inside an exquisitely crafted castle corridor, Esbern carried Ivana straight ahead. She now buried her face in Esbern's chest, her hands covering her teary eyes, her cheeks puffed out in a sulk. Seeing his daughter like this, he clenched his teeth, clearly showing his displeasure. Then Esbern began to remember the hesitant face of the maidservant. The saintess, she doesn't cry often. Snapping out of his thoughts, his eyes darkened even more. Children at this age are not usually like this. Who taught Ivana to cry silently like this? Just then, her nanny appeared, looking at the two in surprise. "You're back, Lady Ivana." She then looked at the little girl in Esbern's arms. Although Ivana was asleep, tears still lingered at the corners of her eyes. "I told you." She cries strangely, not like a child. After speaking, he hugged the little girl tightly and asked the nanny as she was about to take Ivana. Can you guess the reason? This question made the nanny freeze on the spot. She then finally took the still crying Ivana into her arms, looking worriedly at the little girl. Esbern was still asking, we must understand why she cries like that. This time she was still bewildered, but quickly pondered and gave her opinion. Although I don't know the reason, I think there's a way to fix it. Esbern, who was just waiting for this, hurriedly asked, what way? After thinking for a moment, she suggested, maybe she should make friends with children her age. Hearing this, he immediately remembered Johann and had a realization. Is that so? Friends. He then thought of something and became dazed. Friends. In Esbern's mind, an image of the Pope enthusiastically urging appeared. A saintess so cute and lovely must be a member of my family. Propose immediately, grandson. Johann then also followed what his grandfather said and proposed. Then let's get married when we grow up. Ivana also innocently agreed, okay. Snapping out of his imagination, Esbern ordered, I will find a protector for Ivana. For a child, there can be no other thoughts than protection. The nanny hugged her tightly and smiled in agreement, yes. A few days later, a handsome silver-haired boy smiled and introduced himself to her. Thank you very much, Ivana. My name is AC. Hearing what he said, Ivana, dressed in a beautiful dress, was stunned on the spot. A moment later, she couldn't hold back her emotions and burst into tears. Asin. Looking at the gently smiling boy in front of her, Ivana remembered the serious night from the future. The nanny, still oblivious, casually introduced him. This is my relative's grandson. When she came back to her senses, Ivana's eyes shone like stars as she looked excitedly at the boy before her. I didn't expect to meet so soon. So you're the wet nurse's relative. A good person indeed. ACU then approached her and greeted her with proper etiquette. Are you well? This time, Ivana could finally smile brightly and answer honestly. I made her worry yesterday. I'm very sorry. At that time, I was just crying because of an invisible fear, but when I calmed down, I felt fine. This answer left Asin speechless. She really does seem more mature for her age. What you said was completely right, sister. Then he looked towards the wet nurse, who was avoiding his gaze. Asiu then also sat down near Ivana, timidly admitting, I too, when I'm scared, sometimes I also cry without being able to hold it back. Hearing this, she suddenly felt a sense of empathy. ACU too? Asin at this time did not hesitate to admit, yes, so don't be shy. He then also promised, from now on, tell me whenever you feel scared, I will cry with you. Every single word made Ivana freeze on the spot, wondering in her heart, is ACU worried about me? Thinking about that, she couldn't help but smile happily. I've troubled everyone. Ivana then, in the disbelieving eyes of the two people, cried with joy, thank you so much. The other two finally felt happy. ACU looked at her crying and shyly said to the person next to him, Sister, it seems it's not easy at all. The wet nurse beside him was also crying her eyes out. ACU, I'm counting on you. He then continued to discuss with the person next to him, maybe I'm not suitable. Why not let the prince stay near the saintess? Is he that busy? However, Ivana accidentally overheard these words. Realizing their mistake, the two quickly tried to salvage the situation. Prince Ein is busy, so he'll be a little late. ICU beside them also agreed. Yes, that's right. Hearing this, she also reluctantly remembered Innsburn. That's right. Dad said so. Dad will surely solve it. Even so, she was still a little sad. The wet nurse saw this and quickly comforted her. Today, the Saintess will play with ICU. What game does the Saintess like to play the most? Looking at the unicorn, teddy bear, and fairy tale book that were offered, she felt no interest at all, but felt anxious. Then she also reluctantly took the pile of toys. I've done everything I can. All that's left is to trust Dad and wait. This scene made the two happier than a festival. On the other side, Innsburn was silently looking at a pile of documents, his reaction making the other person in the room wonder, what are you thinking about? As soon as his voice was heard, he was startled to realize, Linville. Innsburn then asked about the situation. You heard it too, right? There are rumors about the servant who witnessed yesterday's incident. Linville, when asked, hesitated to answer, the only witness. It's true the rumor has spread everywhere. He then added, I thought it was just an ordinary servant. The problem is among the servants in the palace. Linville sipped his tea and thought for a moment. She has the blood of a witch, can see magical items. That's what they say. Innsburn heard this and understood everything. It seems my brother spread the rumor. He then, with a pained face, continued to speculate. Although the servant's word about having witnessed it seemed true, but just because one thing was discovered to conclude that person is a witch. I can't believe in such a definition of a witch. Has my brother always viewed the people by that standard? Before that question, Linville also pondered pondered for a moment. Perhaps you're the only one in this country who doubts that logic. Hearing this, he stopped drinking his tea. What did you say? Linville saw his reaction and asked back, no, what do you think? Being asked like that, Innsburn pondered initially. Remembering the image of Ivana crying, he put down his teacup. It could probably hurt others. I don't know if it's a real magical item or not. Pausing for a moment, he added, the creatures we've encountered have all been very different. Some look like monsters. Some are very ordinary. We are too ignorant about witches and magical beasts. Linville at this point quickly understood. So are you saying that instead of making regulations about the law, we need to study them first? Innsburn immediately agreed with that opinion. That's right, we might have to make useless sacrifices just to catch witches. But thinking of a problem, he became downcast, but my brother will never accept that. Finishing his words, Innsburn looked at the paper in front of him and wondered, was it my brother who proposed this law? Linville did not hesitate to admit, yes, that's right. He then explained in a very casual manner. If a person is found using magic or possessing a magical item, that person will be considered a witch. Witches are enemies of the temple, will be treated like magical beasts and dealt with immediately without needing a murder conviction. Innsburn also deduced from this, an investigation forced to a conclusion will only create victims. The standards are also very vague. This law is truly too dangerous. Linville, who was sipping his tea, immediately stopped upon hearing this. So you want to amend it? But you know, the law can be amended at any time, depending on power. Hearing this, Innsburn became more determined than ever. He stood up and declared each word firmly. I must become the emperor. My brother is not qualified to bear the throne of this country. These words made Linville freeze. Innsburn then leaned on the table and spoke confidently. I, as the saint, a person responsible for helping, not judging, cannot ignore these threatening seeds. After his declaration, he ordered, send a message to the temple. Linville, the second prince of the Reinhardt Empire, will accept the position of pope that has been long delayed. Immediately after that declaration by Innsburn, everything took place at a church the very next day. Innsburn, wearing an exquisitely embroidered white outfit, a large scepter in his hand, was placing his hands crossed on his chest, reading the oath. The pope is the messenger of God, a position that requires humility, sincerity, and a heart dedicated to serving God. Through people, we realize the love that God gives, and spreading that love is the responsibility of this position. Not stopping there, he read on while the people below listened attentively. All of God's children, and by extension, humanity, and furthermore, people are equal. Ivana today was also dressed in a splendid, exquisite white dress, sitting properly on a chair. On the other side, Liberus watched the ceremony with an expressionless face. The oaths continued, and the more Innsburn read, the more unwilling Liberus became, clenching his fists tighter. This reaction was all taken in by Ivana. After a long reading, the officiant of the ceremony had come to the final decision, and she also focused again. Therefore, I declare, God's grace is descending upon us. Let us together become the ocean that reflects that light. Time flies. 3 years have passed. Ivana was now sitting in a sunny room, drawing something on paper. Looking at the colorful scribbles on the paper, the little girl sank into her thoughts. Although the world doesn't seem to have changed much, there are some small changes. While drawing attentively, the little girl imagined a couple who were clearly in love, but shy on the outside. Rivela has started a relationship with Uncle. The scene continued to change to an elderly chef with a gentle smile. Bailey, who was previously kicked out of the palace for taking care of me, has now become the head chef sooner than expected. Just then, ICU, now older, appeared with a gentle smile alongside the wet nurse. Ivana, it's time, we have to go. Ivana heard this and stopped her drawing, stood up straight, and agreed, yes, let's go. Everything is going smoothly. Currently, I am carrying out my duties as the saintess. Inside the temple, Ivana was enthusiastically encouraging a priest who was healing a young boy. I can do it, more and more. However, life is not a dream, and things ultimately didn't work out. Ivana, in the end, had to step forward and use her power to heal the boy. I am the only one who can perform the baptism successfully. The priests outside witnessing this scene couldn't help but admire her. The saintess is truly wonderful. ICU at her side also chimed in with praise. Ivana is brilliant. The boy's mother now also bowed down, speaking with all her gratitude. Thank you, saintess. Hearing those words, Ivana couldn't help but blush. The little girl then smiled gently at everyone if time could just pass slowly like this, if possible, I wish. Just then, Johann appeared out of nowhere and said bluntly, "Everything will pass quickly." Seeing the boy, Ivana felt helpless. The character who always ruins the atmosphere, Johann Tannen, grandson of the former pope. Then the atmosphere between the two sank into an awkward silence. Ivana then proactively suggested, "Oh, I want to play with Johann." But the person she asked bluntly refused. "No, I have to go home now." This made Ivana dissatisfied, and she started to cry. "What's this? Didn't you say last year that you don't hate me?" Seeing her like this, Johann was at a loss for words and quickly explained, "It's not that, but you." Seeing him about to say something, she stopped. Looking at the beautifully dressed Ivana in front of him, Johann said bluntly, "Your voice sounds too childish today." Hearing this, she froze on the spot. Johann didn't stop there and continued to ask, "Are you doing that on purpose?" "Why?" Being asked this, the little girl refused to answer and turned her face away. "You never talk like that in front of adults. Only to me, you meanie." Hearing this, a smile finally appeared on Johann's face. "Really?" That smile made Ivana grind her teeth. "Are you making fun of me?" Ignoring him, she sulked and walked away. "Fine, I'm leaving. Johann is an idiot." Before Ivana could take a few steps, Johann grabbed her hand and pulled her back. This action confused her. Not stopping there, Johann proactively took Ivana's hand and led her away. "All right, I'll take you home." Even as Johann led her, she still couldn't come to her senses. "What is this?" Then Ivana noticed her in Johann's tightly held hands and wondered even more. "What is this? What is this?" In a corner she didn't see, Johann was smiling contentedly. Behind him, after calming down, Ivana quickly felt embarrassed. "I just badmouthed him." Observing the smile on Johann's face, she became even more confused. "But why does Johann always smile like this? I really don't understand what he's thinking." She's not the only one who thinks so. Fariel also has to agree. "That's right, he's really strange." Ivana then quickly spoke up, voicing her own grievance. "Isn't he? Why does he do that to me?" Fariel hugged the little girl, gently patting and squeezing Ivana's cheeks, advising, "If he's like that again next time, just ignore him." Pausing for a moment, he started to offer more solutions. "No matter what anyone says, you are a saintess and a princess. No one can joke like that." Ivana, whose cheeks were being constantly squeezed, screamed internally, "Then what are you doing, uncle?" After a while of patting and squeezing, Fariel calmly delivered some shocking news. "I have to go home early today, too." This made Ivana astonished. "Why are you repeating that question?" "Why?" After thinking for a moment, Fariel shyly covered his face and answered, "For adult reasons." Seeing him like this, Ivana couldn't help but feel utterly shocked. The little girl then realized a startling truth. "That's right, I was mistaken. It's not that everyone hates me. They just don't want to give up their personal affairs to see me." If there were a scale of life, adult reasons would weigh more than Ivana. Thinking this, Ivana cried in sorrow. "I'm only ever a second choice behind what they consider their reason for being." Thinking of this, she remembered Johann. That day, Johann advised me to take care of myself. The person in question is now wondering, did I? I don't even remember, girl. She then quickly ran away from Fariel. "I didn't come back to find happiness. I shouldn't be greedy, and I should have lived quietly as if I didn't exist." After running for a while, the little girl stopped in a deserted place. There's no one here. A moment later, the little girl couldn't help but sink into negativity. "Is there a big event at the palace today? No one told me." Thinking of something, Ivana became downcast. "It seems I've misunderstood something, but they have no obligation to tell me about their own affairs." As soon as this thought appeared, she couldn't help but clutch the hem of her dress. "I've forgotten my place all this time." Ivana then pushed the door open in frustration. "Go away, you idiot." But inside, everyone had gathered with a huge cake and a big happy birthday sign. The little girl was now stunned, realizing something. Espern, after hearing that sentence, started to boil with anger. "Go away. You idiot, who dares? Who dares to say that to my daughter?" A blond boy with a gentle smile and a face full of freckles introduced himself. "Hello, I'm Gentry. I'm a new servant who started a month ago." Then he suddenly became excited. "Why would someone like me appear? The thing is, 2 weeks ago, I was the one who proposed this surprise birthday party. As soon as this idea was brought up, Lanvio specifically laid it out for everyone. From this year, Princess Ivana's birthday has been determined. So we organized a surprise party. Everyone discussed and prepared very carefully. Then everyone went to Johann, confusing him. "I'm helping too?" In contrast to the boy, Fariel enthusiastically responded, "Leave the timing to me. As for decorating the room for Iva, leave that to me." Gentry naturally helped too. "Leave it to me, it looks good, doesn't it?" Everything seemed to be going smoothly until that day. But then Ivana entered the room with a sad face and whispered, "Go away, you idiot." This one sentence made the whole atmosphere incredibly awkward. Gentry, in the back, suddenly felt like life had nothing left to live for. As everyone stood frozen in that icy space, I regretted it. The very next second, Esperin exploded with anger. Who dares to say those words to my daughter? These words made Gentry just cry his eyes out. Why did I have to open my mouth at that moment? He wasn't the only one regretting his words. Ivana was in the same boat. Why did I say that then, even though I was trying to fix the atmosphere? A moment later, Ivana forced an awkward smile, trying to smooth things over. Happy birthday, happy birthday. Even so, Esperin's face remained colder than money, and the atmosphere was still just as awkward. It's no use. I can't do it. The next day came Ivana, wearing a lovely yellow dress, peeked into the kitchen. The people inside had expressionless faces and spoke in a robotic tone. Welcome, Princess Ivana. This scene left the little girl speechless. Everyone has become strange. The more she looked, the more Ivana couldn't get used to it. It's scary. My dad thinks I've been influenced by the servants and has hastily declared that everyone must have a proper holiday. Esperin, annoyed, had demanded that everyone be forbidden from cursing and criticizing. People started using strange phrases. For example, Saintus, are you preparing to go shopping? Or Saintus, just thinking about it made Ivana tremble with fear if Mom came here. As soon as this thought appeared, she imagined 7,749 different scenarios. This place is crazy. I can't marry into this family. What is happening? Just a glimpse of that scene made Ivana cry her heart out. Suddenly, the little girl thought of an idea. At the same time, a maid brought a basket full of cookies. What should I do? A basket full of warm cookies in various shapes was excitedly shown off by the maid. Saintus, look at this. Isn't the afternoon snack cute? Everyone then noticed something strange. I told you to be careful with your words. Ivana didn't care and asked for an opinion. This food, can I have some more? Ivana, after preparing everything, left with great determination. I have to talk to Dad directly. Wherever she went, people bowed to her. As she walked, she reassured herself. It's not because of Mom. I can't make everyone uncomfortable because of me. When she reached the door of the room, the person outside greeted her with a military-style salute, and Ivana saluted back. After preparing herself mentally, Ivana pushed the door open and shouted, Your Holiness the Pope. Innsbruck, who was working quickly, stopped. Then the two were silent, not saying a word to each other. This atmosphere made Ivana feel awkward. The other two remained silent as before. Ivana was thinking hard about why her father wasn't answering, while Innsbruck was thinking hard about why she wasn't continuing to speak. Only Lanvio realized the situation. After reminding him, he finally spoke up and asked, Why did you come here? Ivana panicked and made up a reason. I brought some cookies to eat with you, Father. There are a lot here. Looking at the little girl, Innsbruck exclaimed, So cute. Holding a cookie in her hand, she gathered all her courage to speak. And I will be more careful too. So let's not do this anymore. Afraid he wouldn't understand what she was saying, Ivana explained in a panic. Can we stop the proper holiday? Ivana unconsciously imitated it wrong. People don't like it. Hearing this, Innsbruck stopped reading his documents. It's not your fault, Ivana. Innsbruck then walked over and picked her up. Learning is good. Holding Ivana at his eye level, he began to explain. Listen carefully, Ivana. Words also have different powers. Good words give courage and hope to the listener. Bad words cause wounds that cannot be erased. Don't be affected by that power. He then hugged her and spoke in a gentle voice. Protecting you is the responsibility of the entire royal family. Grow up happily, Ivana. Everyone shares the same heart. We will protect you during the proper holiday. Right. These words made Ivana's eyes widen in surprise. Then they started to well up with tears. That's right, but Lanvio, watching the touching father-daughter scene, stated a heartbreaking truth. Actually, living only with happiness is impossible. Dreaming is good, but you also need to understand reality as you grow up. This statement made Innsbruck dejected. I know you're not mute. Ivana breathed a sigh of relief at that. Although she felt more comfortable, she still pointed out, but the way people talk during the proper holiday is really scary. Innsbruck fell silent at this, while Lanvio chuckled. The proper holiday finally ended, to everyone's relief. Even so, the cautious atmosphere about words continued, and I gradually managed to correct my habit of talking to myself. Time passed, and on July 10th, 882, the Empire's Unification Day, a ball was held. Someone announced loudly, next to enter, Lady Elizabeth from the family of Baron Witter of Hansteria. Immediately after, a beautiful girl with shimmering pink hair walked in gently. Finally, the day I meet Mother again. Suddenly she became curious. What will the first meeting between Mother and Father be like? I know what Father's face looked like when he was young, but Mother's, They met for the first time at the royal banquet. No one specified the details, but it must have been a fateful encounter the moment their eyes met. A fluttering heart, a first romantic encounter. Ivana had hoped for such a meeting, but Brother Litvio, the red-haired boy, turned around. The girl asked, "Is something wrong?" He said, "Don't say it. That lady with all the rumors has arrived. She's a great beauty, but has a frail body." Elizabeth sat with her arms crossed on a chair, listening very calmly to people gossiping about her. Seeing Innsbruck approach her, the red-haired girl wondered, could it be that even His Holiness the Pope is interested in her? Lanvio glanced over. I don't know. That person who is always so rational, he's probably just interested in the conversation. That red-haired girl is Leela Chloe Linvio, Duke Linvio's younger sister. Lanvio calmly said to her, "You don't stand a chance anyway." This made Leela furious. "How can you decide for me? Because life is always cruel like that." "What did you just say?" "Those people over there." The blonde boy stammered. "Well," Elizabeth said, "I can remind you. The remaining refugees in Nassau are just descendants of criminals and witches. They can't be saved." How strange. Saving Nassau is the greatest goal of the Imperial Church. The Church has taught that all peoples are children of God. So what reason do you have to distinguish this salvation? The two men heard this, and sweat poured down like rain. "Sorry, it's because we were drunk and spoke nonsense." Innsbruck's face darkened as he repeated, "Spoke nonsense." Hearing him say that, the two men froze like statues. Leaving a "sorry," they ran off and disappeared. Seeing they were gone, Innsbruck let out a sigh of relief. Elizabeth remarked, "It seems young people often make mistakes like that, huh? I guess no one reads the theory of restoration anymore." He turned to look at her and blushed. Immediately looking away, he asked, "You've read the theory of restoration?" She replied, "Of course, the theory of Nassau's liberation, the origin of the empire. I've read all the ancient books on the Church's doctrine." While she was talking, Innsbruck walked over to a chair and sat down. "Not bad at all." He didn't understand what she was saying. "What do you mean?" She replied, "Thanks to that, I have the opportunity to face His Holiness the Pope." Lella was dumbfounded to see the two of them sitting opposite each other, chatting. Lanvio was also confused by his actions, and everyone around them also turned their gazes towards them. Over here, Elizabeth rested her chin on her hand and flirted. "Actually, I really wanted to meet the Pope." Innsbruck blushed shyly, scratching his hair in surprise. "Oh, is that so? I also really want to talk with you, my lady." The Lanvio siblings were thunderstruck. Lella looked lifeless. Lanvio summoned everyone. The Pope's board of directors gather around. He asked, "Who thinks the two of them could develop something?" Feria was surprised. "My brother in love?" Biola whispered, "I don't know, but this is a good opportunity. Let's try to give a push and see." The other person even has pink hair. Everyone imagined the scene of Elizabeth holding Ivina. A perfect match for our Ivina. And so the scene was set. Everyone, don't go near them. Thanks to that, the two of them got some private space to talk. A moment later, Elizabeth was heard saying, "We've been talking for a while. I'm a little warm. Can we go outside for some fresh air? Then let's go to the terrace." Meanwhile, Ivina couldn't get away because of Linda. Linda told her, "Everyone went to the party today." She cried her eyes out, I know. Elizabeth and Innsbruck had reached the balcony. Innsbruck looked at her and smiled. He said, "This is the first time I've had such a pleasant conversation with someone else." "Oh, really?" "Yes. As you can see, my lady, the main purpose of the Holy Alliance has long been forgotten, but the Pope still remembers it clearly, right? A candle without a wick cannot burn." Elizabeth looked at him. "So how will the refugee issue be handled?" "Everyone is very afraid that a fearsome which will infiltrate the empire." "Don't worry, the empire has many strong knights." She smiled and continued his thought. "Among them, you are surely the strongest, right?" He was surprised. "What?" This is suddenly the building emitted a very loud sound. As he looked in that direction, he heard her say, "If you keep being so careless." He looked back confused, and their faces were much closer. His eyes widened at her kiss. The two of them stared into each other's eyes. The kiss ended, and at the same time, a knife was at his throat, along with her words. And if the Pope were to be injured, a lot of people would be very sad. Thank you for watching today's video. Our story continues with many exciting developments ahead. So don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to support us and not miss the latest episodes. We wish you relaxing and enjoyable moments. See you in the next video. Thank you for watching.